welcome to Them's Writin Words, a podcast where we talk about pastel horse literature. My name is Scribbler, and I will be your moderator today. Joining me for this discussion, we have Sunny Possum. Or do you just want to... Hang on. Do you want to be Sunny or do you want to be Sunny Possum?
Sunny, because I actually don't go by Sunny Possum when it's horse stuff.
Yeah, I meant to ask you about that before because you have two Twitters and I wasn't sure which one to refer to you by.
Yes, the one with the horse face on it is the one for horse stuff.
They both have horses on.
They don't. They don't.
Okay, maybe this is a bit of Mandela effect. Joining me for this discussion, we have Sunny.
Yellow.
Neighrator Pone.
Hello.
Illya Leonov.
Hello, everyone.
Someone who actually had their first appearance in the podcast last time, but never got formally introduced, Nile of the Nine.
Hi.
And joining us for the first time, we have Clever Hooves.
Howdy, y'all.
And Skywriter.
Pleasure to be here.
Today, we're looking at the fanfic Lost Time by Bookplayer, as chosen by me. The synopsis reads, Rainbow Dash can't wait for her first date with Applejack. They always have an awesome time hanging out, and a relationship just means there are even more physical activities they can try together. So when the dumb Zap Apple harvest postpones their date, she decides it's the Zap Apples that are going to have to change their plans. Equestria should know by now that wild, ancient magic is no match for Rainbow Dash, especially when she might get laid. Everything is going according to plan until she crashes. Or rather, until she wakes up after crashing, and 15 years have gone by. 15 years during which she seems to have been a very busy pony. Now Rainbow Dash has to adjust to a life she never thought she wanted and figure out if she'll ever get to live the life that brought her here. The story was published between the 28th of December 2015 and 15th of January 2016 and clocks in at 57,620 words, which I'm sure everyone loves me for. Right.
Yes, thank you for that.
Very much so.
Yeah, you're all really glad that I can't pick more than once in a cycle because this is the second time I've done this. So thank you all for being here and reading the nearly 60,000k fic.
I'd just like to point out that I was ignorant that was even a weird thing for you guys. I just figured that you're all such big brains that, that was normal.
I think 60,000 is our limit, right?
60,000 is our limit, and I love how you think we're big brains when literally I entered this discussion with a poo joke.
But a big-brained poo joke.
All right, then
It was a massive poo joke.
It was a satisfying poo joke.
Oh no!
I think we need to draw a distinction between intellect and maturity levels. Those are
See,
two different.
Yeah. See, Skywriter gets it.
It's thematic.
True, depending on how you feel about the ending of this story. Right, okay, so we're going to do the spoiler-free part of the review to begin with. I will let people know when spoilers are enacted so people can go and read the story and come back. So first of all, we'll start off with tags. Do we believe that they are accurate? There are only two tags for this one, and that's romance and drama. Right, we're going with the same way we did with introductions. Sunny?
Oh, good lord. And here I was trying to go up to the side to very quickly stealth Google all the tags that Fanfic has available.
Tons.
Because
There's always new ones.
romance and drama definitely fit. I can't remember if there's like a sad tag or something to that effect. Angst? Something like that would have fit, in my opinion.
I think sad, angst, and tragedy are all tags. At the very least, sad and tragedy are.
Is time travel bullshit a tag?
Time travel is a tag now, I think. I'd have to check that one.
Oh, wow, I was being facetious.
Well,
Displaced.
It's the site is like 11 years old. It's got a lot of tags that have been added in over the years. So, Sunny, you think sad should have been a tag?
Yeah, something to that effect, like sad or tragedy, just one of those, because I know it's probably not meant that way, but personally, without spoiling, the ending was very depressing for me.
Yeah,
good.
I agree. I thought I was going to be the only one who thought that.
Oh, no.
Okay, it makes me feel better. There's at least two people in here who will get what I mean. Neighrator, what did you think of the tags? Do you think they're accurate? Anything should be added? Whatever?
Pass. I never pay attention to the tags, and I have nothing to add.
So you think it's just a romantic drama?
Sure.
Okay. Niall?
Yeah, I'm going with Narrator's answer. I don't really pay attention to the tags much, but both of those seem to fit pretty well. There's probably other ones that would have worked, but it's fine.
Illya?
I think the 2 tags are perfectly applicable, and it doesn't need any others.
Oh, so you don't think it needs the sad tag?
No, it's not sad, not to me.
Clever? What do you think?
I think that it's accurate, and not only do I think it's accurate, I think that like Illya, I think lots of different people are going to get different things out of this, and I'm sure this will come out in the discussion later. So I would be hesitant to throw other tags on it because who you are might affect whether you think it's a sad fic or it's a this kind of fic or that fic. But I think drama and romance are perfectly applicable as well.
Skywriter?
I'm going to break with the group here. I mean, tags are always a little bit of a subjective experience. So I mean, whatever anyone says, this what this word means to me. But I mean, I think the piece is dramatic. I'll give it that. But I think it's subsumed under the fact that it is a romantic drama. Drama is not. It seems like drama is not really happening independent of the romance. It's kind of a fine distinction, possibly, but everything seems to be lumped under the romance. I would be fine with just calling this romance and nothing else, because there's sad romance and then there's dramatic romance, and you can have a comedy romance. But I think primarily this is a romance rather than a piece of a highly dramatic piece. But that's just my take.
Interesting. Good point.
Yeah. I personally think that romance and drama fit because it's quite subjective, but I always tend to think that sad comes into drama a little bit, that drama generates emotions generally. If it's a romance, sadness, because there's got to be some conflict before your couple can get together, or more than couple. Not going to have that conversation again that I had about polyamory with other people before, but polyamory is an option. So we're going to have a quick summary of the story, which is me talking for quite a while. But also there's something that is important to mention about this fic before we move on to the spoilery discussion, and before people go into reading it themselves. This was written before Starlight Glimmer was even a thing in canon. And that was, or at least at the very least, it's written and set before she became part of the main 7 or 8, or whatever you want to call it. She's not a featured character in the future sections of this story from when Rainbow Dash wakes up and 15 years have gone by, because she wasn't a main character yet IRL. So she doesn't feature in this story. So I just don't want there to be people going, why hasn't this happened? Why hasn't this happened? When that part of canon didn't exist yet. Like every bloody time Silent Ponyville and Octavia being a pie sister come up and people go, that's not like canon. Things change. And knowing when this was written does lend some kind of understanding to some of the creative decisions made within it, especially some of the background couples. Okay, so brief summary of this story. The synopsis does tell you most of it, except for some rather important factors that Rainbow Dash has asked Applejack out on a date. Applejack is supposed to be going out this weekend. Zap Apple signs start coming. Rainbow Dash messes with the Zap Apple weather over the Everfree Forest, messes with wild magic, and wakes up 15 years later. Apparently, completely transported into the body of her older self, who has not only gone on the date with AJ, but married her and had 3 kids with her. Rainbow Dash, when she wakes up, finds that she has to cope with life as a mother, as well as a wife, and also as somebody who achieved her dream of becoming a Wonderbolt and then gave it up. And that's all given quite early on in the story. So although it's a little bit spoilery, it's not full out spoilers, because it just lends this idea of she has lived properly. She's had a full 15 years that she doesn't know anything about. And she has to try and pretend, for the sake of her kids, that she does remember this stuff, because Applejack, being their mother, is very protective of them and doesn't want them freaked out by the fact that their mum doesn't know who they are. So there are 3 children. Leaf, who's the oldest, an Earth Pony colt. Cider, the middle child, who is a Pegasus, but is not interested in flying in any way except over Sweet Apple Acres. And I think it's Orchard. Is it Orchard Sky?
Yeah, that's right.
Orchard Sky.
Right, okay. I just knew him as the baby as I was trying to recall. It was like, the baby, the 1-year-old. Orchard Sky is a Pegasus cult, and is the one of the 3 whom Rainbow Dash personally carried and birthed herself. And she doesn't know who any of these are, and thus she and Applejack have to engage in a lot of not outright lies, but certainly subterfuge from their kids so as not to freak them out as to what's going on while they go to Twilight and try to figure out how to exchange Dash's mind with that of her older self, whom they assume is now in the body of her younger self. So that's the spoiler-free version of this without giving away the ending. So, what are people's overall opinions of this story without giving away the ending? Would anybody like to go first? Niall, go on.
I loved it. Really did. I felt like there were a lot of subjects tackled through it, and especially without going into the ending. I loved it because I was guessing all the way till the end because of the arguments that were made between the characters trying to figure it out and how it's evolving as you go. I love that I got that feel of a twist at the end because they do a lot of good setup to make you think it's one thing, but then it turns out to be something else. And kind of to the point earlier, I feel like the ending makes it, instead of a tragedy, it's more of a like second chance thing, and it actually was uplifting for me personally. I loved it.
Neighrator, what did you think?
I am sorry to say that this fic missed me mostly. I think it's mostly to do with my own personal prejudice against time travel shenanigan stories in general. I mean, I like AppleDash as much as the next guy, but this one was a miss for me.
Sunny?
Similar to Neighrator, I'm a huge AppleDash shipper, but I was kind of surprised by how indifferent I was to this fic. It's a good fic. It's a perfectly fine read, but everyone was raving about it so much I was maybe going into it without a totally unbiased idea of what I was getting into, and I don't think it quite lived up to the hype that y'all set for it, but it's not bad. It's just not my flavor.
The Titanic effect. Illya, what did you think?
I actually thought it was one of the best fan fictions I've ever read in terms of its writing. It was just written wonderfully. Every time I was anticipating something I thought would be there it was. The only thing I have against it, and that spoiled my reading pleasure, was the fact that I don't give a shit about AppleDash. I mean, I really don't. It doesn't do anything for me. So I had to find other ways to enjoy the story. But it really just seemed to follow the way I was thinking. For example, when Dash, gets to the future and there's these kids and people and a sort of a somewhat strange Applejack, because he's not the one he knew. My first impression was, well, I don't give a shit about any of these characters. Why do I want to read this? I don't know these kids. They don't mean anything to me. I don't know this Applejack. She doesn't mean anything to me. And very soon after, the story took the same tone. That's exactly the way Rainbow Dash felt. And so I just thought it was written incredibly cleverly, beautifully. It just struck me as a wonderfully well-written piece that I didn't particularly enjoy because of the subject matter.
Clever?
Oh, I'm gonna gush a bit, I think, and I feel bad for it almost. I love this story. I love it so much. It's well paced. The main characters are well characterized. The themes are interesting. They're mature and authentic, and much like in a performance, that the circumstances or events are not huge. Like the world isn't necessarily ending, but the execution in how this story is told makes the feelings and the stakes big. So it may not be the end of Equestria. No spoilers there, sorry, but it it feels like it could be the end for these characters or their personal worlds. And I think that's a hallmark of good storytelling, when you can create this tension and drama out of what could be arguably small things and small moments. And I live for it. I love every bit about that. The ending, much like Niall said earlier, I loved it. I found it in a way uplifting. And I have a strong suspicion that after listening to some other opinions on it, that I think your personal history is going to affect your view of how much you actually enjoy how the story goes. But what I would have a hard time finding fault, like I think anyone who reads this will agree that it is well written. I think the only caveat would be whether it's going to strike you as being enjoyable or not from your own personal tastes.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate before we go any further that I really mean it when I say this is one of the best written stories I've ever read in the fandom. That much I do want to drive home.
Okay. Skywriter.
My feelings are mixed on this story. I mean, I believe that it is. I agree that it's well written. It seems to be workmanlike construction. Everything, all the beats drop properly. All the themes. I think the author succeeded in, getting across and what they set out to do. So I mean, that's a point in its favor. What kept striking me over and over again while reading Lost Time is that it's an unbelievably safe fic. It's very much well within the constraints of the show. And people say this could be an episode of the show, and they usually mean that as a compliment to the fic, and rightfully so. But more than this could be an episode of the show, I felt like I was watching a processed version of the show that had been reordered into a romance. It doesn't try a lot of new things. Everything is, and I think I used this discussion when talking to my spouse about this earlier, it feels like I've been given a color form set of the original show and just have decided to place the color forms in such a way that it became a romance. We have Rainbow Dash getting into an accident, which is pretty standard for this is really baseline fanfiction stuff. Rainbow Dash gets into an accident, and then Twilight attempts to cast a spell to try and turn it out. But she does not sure about that, so they look for a solution, and it comes from inexplicably a potion from Zecora, and Applejack and Rainbow Dash decide to go on a date. And would they do it by running through the forest? Again, it's like I've seen all of these scenes before. It doesn't really go anywhere new as such, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just seemed like it played it very safe. And I know that's fan fiction. You're constantly fighting a battle between cleaving to the source material to make it relevant to your audience and going somewhere interesting and exciting with it. But that was just, I kept honestly, I kept being thrown by the fact that this was a post season 5 fic when they would reference canon elements that okay, this is the castle. And it's like, wait, the castle, that's not till season 5. I kept placing this in my mind as like a very early Pone fic, like a 2012, 2011 sort of thing, just because it just doesn't go into a lot of daring, interesting places. It seemed very safe. It seemed like a very early fandom fic. So it kept throwing me that it was actually a mid to late fandom fic, somewhere in that area. So, I mean, I think it did its job, but I think it worked to hold my attention on that front because I had seen every element of it before in a different context.
Suni?
I just wanted to make a quick couple points on some of the things you said before you move on. For one thing, I think that it feeling like an earlier fic might have been at least somewhat intentional. I think it meant to harken back to a lot of early seasons moments expressly because Rainbow Dash was meant to be living in that time more or less. Or she was at least meant to read as younger and more in tune with events of the past. And, you know, the running of the leaves is a very...
Younger and dumber.
Yeah, the running of the leaves is a very iconic AppleDash moment. So I think that was intentionally harkened back to a bit. Another point, Kat, did you have to knock my entire desk while I was talking? The whole thing? The entire thing. You're very little. That's hard to do.
He says, "Oh, Mama, I'm here."
I'm going to throw off your train of thought. Doom. With Twilight, because she's the main character of the series and specifically designed to be able to tackle a lot of problems on her own, literally having her talent in magic, I think it's sometimes difficult for writers to avoid having her at least try to swoop in and fix everything without almost having the plot be taken over by reasons why she wouldn't do that. So I almost think that trying to avoid her being the one they go to because Twilight, and trying to make it so that she was indisposed would have been more distracting than just allowing the narrative to go where it naturally would, even if it's a bit cliche, and then turning that on its head a little bit, in my opinion. I don't think it went with the Twilight tries to fix everything cliche quite so hard because of how it ends. And also the potion she used is a canon element. That is something that Zecora actually used that only Twilight would know about.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in a little bit. I hope I'm not white knighting this fic, because I don't want to do that. But I guess I get that there were a lot of safe elements, and I am begrudgingly agreeing with that. But at the same token, I feel like there is a reinterpretation or a maturity that when those elements are explored that we get as a reader, and that's the payoff. So instead of seeing characters in doing necessarily different things, what we're seeing is a very in-depth and mature analysis of what are these characters experiencing. And as a fan, because the characterizations are so strong, or at least to me, I felt they were very strong and they seemed to ring really true. I wasn't shouting at this fic and going, that character wouldn't do that. In fact, nowhere in this fic did I feel like a character kind of went against their normal characterization. And I mean, you could argue that that's boring or uninteresting or whatnot. And I'm not saying that anyone has said that. Let's be clear. But what I found that I was continually surprised about is that everybody sort of reacted in a very canon way, but not only was it still interesting, and this was the part that I felt was masterful, they still seemed to add to the mythos of the world, like in talking about things like magic and how that sort of worked. And yet they still told a compelling story without characters having to suddenly behave radically, depart from their normal behavior. And that's something that I find as a very personal pet peeve, is when an author takes a character and makes them behave out of character for the sake of creating drama or tension. And that does not happen here. And it's one of the things that I absolutely love about it. I think I wait for future questions keep gushing, so I'll step back.
It's fine. If nobody else has anything to comment on there, Illya, have you go? Go on.
I just wanted to say I was very pleased that there was no Deus Ex Machina in here just saving the day. It really went to a place where it had to resolve in a different manner. I really liked that.
See, it's funny you say that, because without giving away spoilers, because we're about to go into the spoiler section in a minute, I loved this fic up until the last chapter. And personally, I felt like the ending felt way more rushed than the rest of the fic. One of the things I really enjoyed about this was that it took its time building world building, character building, building tone as well, and building atmosphere. It's one of the best representations of AppleDash I've ever seen. And I love AppleDash, but this one felt like the author had sat down and thought, okay, how would they function as a couple? And it worked really well for me. But the ending felt like it came out of a completely different story. It felt to me like that attention to detail, that attention to the atmosphere, that careful erection of... I shouldn't have used that word. That careful... Shut up! Oh, fuck off. I've been watching too much Archer, okay?
Careful erection. Does those two words go together properly?
Oh, God.
I think
I'm
it
trying
should.
to make a big brain point.
And I don't mean to interrupt, but I was literally in my mind thinking, I don't know, Rainbow Dash's characterization and her being really obsessed with certain stuff. And then you said that, and I was like, did she read my mind?
Right, okay, I'm going to start a sentence again, and I'm not going to cut out any of that. I'm going to leave all of that in the podcast. The careful construction, which would have been a better word in the first place, of this relationship and the life they've built together. I loved that. I loved that I wasn't just expected to accept it, but was told the reasons why. And I came to understand it the same way that Rainbow Dash did, which is why I hate the ending, because it did not feel like even a tenth of that careful consideration had gone into the ending. It felt like the ending was rushed to meet a deadline, and that might not be how it actually went, but that's how it felt. And it's a very subjective opinion, because I know that some people really liked the ending and thought it was a perfect denouement. I just am not one of them. So we're going to just give brief highlighting of any later points like tone and pacing and things that people feel. Does anybody have anything they really want to say before we go into spoilers? No? Clever? Okay.
I forgot. You always say you like positive affirmation that we don't want something. So if we should all say no when that situation arises. So no, I have nothing to.
Thank
add.
you.
No.
Yeah, feedback is
nada.
good for a moderator.
I am
Otherwise,
fine
the
with
moderator
continuing.
assumes our Wi-Fi has died again. So we're going into the spoiler territory now. Oh no, Clever, go on.
Sorry. Just one of the things that, before we get into spoiler territory, that I noticed and appreciated was the pacing. And I know I've said this before, but one of the notes I wrote was many times when I'm reading, I get bored with the scene and I skim rather than read deeply. And that was not the case here at all. I really felt that the chapters were well chunked out, and that really jived for me.
Okay. Right, so going into spoilers now. Plot summary courtesy of NP. Apparently, NP has requested on the document that he wants to give the plot summary from this point on with the spoiler territory. So go on, NP.
I have written up a spoilery plot synopsis, which I could read to outline the rest of the story, if it pleases the court. Okay, I will caution that at this time it is more than a little colored by my own opinion of the story. So just know that this is not at all unbiased. So, Rainbow Dash wants to go on a date with Applejack so she can get laid, but Applejack is busy with the Zap Apple harvest. But Rainbow Dash is really horny, so she decides to use her weather-bending powers to speed up the magic Zap Apple clouds so the harvest will come sooner so that she can bang AJ. But something goes wrong, and Rainbow Dash crashes, and when she wakes up, it's 15 years later. And Rainbow Dash and Applejack got married and had biological children by means which are never explained other than magic, I guess. Rainbow tells Applejack what happened, but they decide not to tell their kids so they aren't freaked out by one of their moms not knowing who they are. Rainbow Dash sucks at parenting with hilarious results. Rainbow and Applejack go to see Twilight to see if maybe she can send Rainbow back to her own time. Twilight tells them it's either a closed loop or open loop time travel. Let's try that again. Twilight tells them it's either closed loop time travel, future Twilight style, or open loop time travel, cutie remark style, which would be super bad and might explode the universe. But Twilight needs time to read books first to figure out which it is, so Rainbow has to go back to the farm where she sucks at parenting some more. Applejack tells Rainbow she needs to move out because she's not really her wife, but then Rainbow starts to not suck at parenting so much, so they decide not to. Later they go back to Twilight, and Twilight puts a magical mud mask on Rainbow and figures out that Rainbow is in a closed loop, which is good news, because it means Rainbow will go back to her own time at some point. But then Applejack gets super mad at Rainbow for not telling her about the time travel thing in the past, and Rainbow's like, okay, but I wouldn't lie to you. But Applejack is still super mad at Rainbow for something she hasn't even done yet. And Twilight says, okay, but you definitely will lie, though, because I'm never wrong. Applejack and Rainbow return home and read a sealed letter that Rainbow wrote to Applejack in the past in case she ever died while she was a Wonderbolt, because, oh yeah, Rainbow Dash was a Wonderbolt at one point and then retired. The letter proves that Rainbow Dash didn't lie and it's not an open loop or a closed loop. So they go back to Twilight, who says, oops, my bad, I guess I'm wrong just this one time. So actually, what you have is magical amnesia, which means you can't go back to your own time and you'll never remember what happened in those 15 years. Sucks to be you. But Rainbow isn't sad at all about this, about missing the best 15 years of her life, and instead is happy that she didn't lie to Applejack, and the two live happily ever after. The end.
Honest trailers.
Okay, so we're gonna go on. That was a lot. It was a big fic. You clearly have opinions. So we're gonna start with characterization based on that plot summary. Do we feel it's accurate for Rainbow Dash and Applejack, and to a lesser extent Twilight and the rest of the main six in their very brief appearances and the information we're given about how their lives have evolved? So we're going to start with Rainbow Dash and Applejack. Do we feel it's accurate, their characterization? So MP, after that sterling performance, what do you think?
No.
The huge in-breath is not a good sign. Like, right, we need to have a word.
I gotta take serious issue with Applejack's with Applejack's specifically in this one. There were high points and low points, but I feel like the point at which Applejack tells Rainbow, yeah, you're not the woman I married, you're not the pony I married, and so we need to get a divorce. Actually, I feel like that was a bit rushed, especially since this was before Twilight had got back to them and figured out like what the thing was, if this was permanent, if they could go back at any point. But just like, nope, you have amnesia, therefore we have to get a divorce. I felt like that was very out of character for Applejack.
What about Rainbow Dash then? What do you think of Rainbow Dash, MP?
Rainbow was pretty on message, I thought.
I heard a little squeaky noise from Suni then that usually indicates disagreement. Suni?
I love that you know what it means. Well, this is a point later, the whole divorce bit, but I think that move by Applejack was irrational. I don't think that means it was out of character.
Agree. Hard agree.
Same.
I felt that it was sort of an explosion of the fact that she had been completely ignoring her own needs, and that when it finally came to a head for her, that was how she kind of overreacted and tried to overcorrect. And I felt that was actually a bit of realism for her character. But I agree too that it may have happened a little bit artificially faster than maybe what, if we were to pretend in real life, if such a thing exists in fics of this nature. But I'm going to stop talking.
It's fine. This is a podcast. It's for talking. Skywriter?
I'm a little dubious about how quickly, in order to, I guess, keep up appearances, that they decided to so quickly get back into, let's just do things like normal, including leave Rainbow Dash alone with kids that she barely knows and doesn't know any of their needs of. And there were probably plot justifications about that, but it seemed like a little bit strange that when something obviously terribly traumatic had happened and the normal life could not continue, that they decided to. I don't have a problem with them. Well, I guess I do have a problem with, but I don't have a problem with dramatically them saying, okay, we're not going to immediately start spilling, hey kids, guess what? One of your moms can't remember you. Sorry, have a good day at school. They kind of corrected really hard in the other direction, and I think that felt a little bit like an artificial attempt to really hammer home the Rainbow Dash sucks at being a mom, so that they could progress along the arc of Rainbow Dash learning to be a mom, which seemed to be one of the goals of the storyline. But that they didn't just haul everything back at this moment seems like not just a bad character, not like a bad idea for the in characters, which characters can have bad ideas, but that seemed weird. It seemed weird that they would put the kids in an actually perilous situation with Rainbow Dash, who doesn't know any of their needs, or obviously has not really been paying attention to their needs, or has not been schooled as to how to mind a child. They've just put her alone with the kids, just like nothing else has happened, in the interest of making it seem like nothing was wrong for the kids. It seemed artificial. It seemed manufactured to me.
Niall?
So yeah, I felt like it was really well done on the characterization side from both AJ and RD. With everything I've heard so far, one of the counterpoints I'd make is this is exactly who RD would be, because this is shitty little like early 20s RD who doesn't have any responsibilities, who sleeps on clouds, who doesn't give two fucks about being anything other than awesome. And you've dropped her into full parental responsibilities, and I felt like it worked really well. Also from AJ's perspective of she doesn't know if this is permanent or not permanent. She doesn't know if this is going to last a day, a week, because I'm sure during that 15 years she's seen Dash while she was in the Wonderbolts have concussions, probably have some memory loss, probably had a couple issues. So she's like, well, I'm going to give it a day or two and just see if this is a regular medical issue. And maybe it's just Dash being Dash, but, it's one of those things where I felt like it was very genuine on both ends, because especially when it gets to the divorce side of it, like AJ has put down her feelings. She's taken a wait and see attitude. She's the calming one of the two of them, probably in the relationship, just because of her background. And she's essentially doing what most people do in a relationship. Whenever things get tough, they either vent out or they stuff in. And AJ stuffs in. AJ has the mindset of, I have to be the strong one. I have to be the rock. It'll be okay. And, when it's clear that it's not going to be okay anymore, she has to come to the hardest decision, in my opinion, in fic, which is, well, I have this character that looks like the person that I love more than anything in the world, and I've spent 15 years with, and I have to cut her out of my life because it's going to cause too many problems and too much pain having her here. And also, eventually, the kids are going to start to learn more, and it's easier to be like, hey, this isn't the same person. We can blame it on an accident kind of deal. But, like, I think her going to separation it makes a lot of sense. And, she tries. There's the scene where I think they're talking and AJ, sexually comes on to Dash. And it's this thing where she's trying to see if, like, it can work. And Dash kind of puts her down because she's at a point in the fic where she's developed more. Like, I think it was Illya that said at the beginning, like, Dash doesn't give a fuck about the characters, and neither, that's how he felt. He's like, why do I care about these characters? And that's why Dash resonates so well, is because she is us. Like, she doesn't know these characters. She doesn't know why they care about them. But at that point in the story, she has developed some sense of like, oh, these kids aren't so bad. And, oh, this is AJ, an older version of AJ that, is still sexy and everything, but she also realizes all the things that she has meant to the family at that point. And while she doesn't fully understand it, she at least understands that, like, oh, I have to be more open with AJ. I can't just get laid like she was at the beginning. But I felt like overall there are so many points through the fic where it makes sense. But the biggest thing I would say is, like, if I went back 10, 15 years, I mean, I was an asshole. I think all of us were in our teens and early 20s.
Yep.
Like, you're not aware.
Bold of you to assume that was teens or early 20s for all of us.
Yeah. Well, whichever. It's one of those things where we didn't have the perspective or the life experience. And that's what I think makes this resonate so well and shine through, is because this is a perfect depiction of somebody who doesn't have an idea of what all that is, thrown into a world where she's supposed to, and then having somebody that does have that experience and background trying to make a better decision because she knows that the fallout will affect the kids. And that is her world. That's AJ's entire world, is those kids and that farm and that family. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. I felt like it was great.
Get out of my head.
Never.
I've actually lost track of who hasn't spoken, but I saw Sunny's little mouth flash. Go on.
Yeah, I had 2 points with specific regards to Skywriter, and then I guess I can give my general thoughts too. You mentioned the decision to hide it from the kids seeming kind of constructed and rushed. I will say, having helped raise children, and being someone who was raised by this kind of person who was a very good parent but fell into this hole a lot, it is very easy to lie to your kids for their own sake and then get stuck doing that, especially if something very big is happening. It's really, really easy to fall into the trap of, well, I'm not going to tell them this huge, awful thing is happening yet, because you want to protect them from that sort of drama happening when they're really young, and you're really scared that kind of thing will mess them up. So you don't mean to be dishonest, and you don't mean to break their trust, but like, if you think you might have a terrible terminal illness or something like that, you wouldn't immediately tell them, okay, well, I'm going to get tests done to see if I have this thing, because you're just going to leave them to sit with that anxiety. And you would much rather have the solution to be able to say, okay, I got tested for this thing, but I don't have it, or I got tested for this thing, but I do have it, and this is what we need to do about it. Like, you want to be the guiding force who can get them through that time and not have to let them sit in the same anxiety you have to deal with as an adult. And that's not healthy. That's not a good thing to do. You should tell your children when really dramatic things that could very suddenly affect them are going on. And it's okay to do that every now and then, but I agree that they should have told the kids, and the kids should have been a part of the process, but it is very common for parents to not do that. And I thought that was really realistic, especially for Applejack. Even if she is the element of honesty, it's kind of a plot point that she justified lying to her children, because she was lying. She pretties it up, but she was lying. But she tries to say, I didn't know what the truth was. And that was very true to me as a person who has been in a parental role. Like, if you don't know what to tell your children, you want to kind of put off telling them until you do. And then also, just a quick bit on Rainbow Dash's parenting abilities. It's not as if she's never dealt with children, because she was half raising Scootaloo. Let's be real. And Applejack has seen that. So even if Scootaloo wasn't a massive part of this fic, she's been near kids before. She just hadn't been near those kids and didn't know their specific needs, like the fact that the Pegasus wasn't a very strong flyer and might fall off of a cloud.
Before anyone else has this point, just wanted to say, Sunny, what you said about parents not telling their kids things because they feel like it's the better choice to lie to them until such point as it kind of gets out of hand. I kept saying yep during that because when I was reading that part of it, it chimed very much with me, because when I was 16, my mum was diagnosed with a really rare form of cancer and didn't tell any of us for about 4 months while she was fighting cancer. Didn't tell us. And the only reason we found out in the end is because she had to be hospitalized the last day of my GCSE exams, which are kind of like the SATs in the UK. And I was going to be off school longer than everybody else because I had officially left school at that point, and I was going to be in the house on my own, and that was the only reason she finally told me. So I kind of got where that was coming from, but I also was reading that from the kid's point of view as well, going, fucking tell them, please, because otherwise the shock of everything at once, it could have gone very, very badly.
I mean, I think I would agree that it was it was in character and also a bad idea, just objectively speaking, for them to lie. I guess my problem with the fic was not that they did that, which seemed like an in-character bad choice, but that they would, that they didn't think of a better explanation as to, hey, we're going to go on a whole family holiday now where I can always be in sight of the kids. and not leave them alone with the brain damaged other mom. That they didn't think of a better pretense than to just try to continue life as normal under that lie, rather than try to do something where it would be in a situation where they could, where Applejack could keep an eye on everything, because she knows that that the situation's not normal, and she can say everything's fine, but still say, this is an abnormal situation. Let's go on a family holiday where we don't have to separate and everybody else can take care of the farm, and we can all just kind of look at each other and watch each other and not just try to leap right back into normal routines. That was just my thing. Like I said, I think I believed it. It was a little heartbreaking, but I believed it out of Applejack that she would do that. I just think it was weird that, again, I guess it's the child endangerment was bothering me, and I didn't know if that was organic or not.
I think that's why they wrote the Zap Apple theme in there, because there were things that were requiring Applejack's attention at that point. She couldn't just walk away from the farm. The Zap Apple season was the reason. As far as the characterizations, though, I thought they were spot on. I mean, everyone. I didn't see any problems. We were seeing the characters in very novel situations, which is a little bit difficult to predict. At first, I thought Rainbow Dash was a bit callous. I thought, well, damn, Rainbow Dash, these are kids, and but when I thought back to the way I was feeling about the story, I said, well, that's probably right, especially for someone like Applejack. And I thought Rainbow Dash, and I thought Rainbow Dash went through a lot of character development in the story, which was very good. And also, as far as Applejack's feelings about Rainbow Dash being able to parent the children, she'd seen him for the last 15 years. He hadn't, but she'd seen him. She knew what he was capable of. And I think it was important for him to develop that one-on-one relationship with the kids without the buffer of Applejack being in there. So I thought those characters were beautifully written. And I thought Twilight was wonderfully written for her little stint. She was very interested in the problem, took it scientifically, knew she needed more data. That was great. And as for not telling the children, they didn't know what the hell was going on. Well, there would have been nothing they could have told the children that wouldn't have been a lie, because they had no idea. So I think that was one of the reasons that they didn't tell them. It was quite possible that Dash would just suddenly get her memory back, everything would be okay, and the kids wouldn't have to suffer. So I didn't see anything wrong with that. I just, everything worked in the story to me, except for the ending, and we're going to get to that, aren't we?
Oh, we are going to get to the ending, yes. Does anybody else want to comment on Rainbow Dash and Applejack's characterization before we move on to the other main six? Clever?
A lot. All right. To echo a couple things that have been said, characterization, ridiculously good. One of the things that I felt was a hallmark of that, without needing to parse the words, was the fact that when I was reading this story, the characterization was so strong that I could hear their voices and their intonation while I was reading, and it wasn't like me trying to add that in. It literally just leapt off the page to me that it was that real, that my brain just automatically filled it in. And I felt that was a real hallmark of they nailed these characters. Rainbow is so well fleshed out. And hearing, like, when she's upset, she has to go fly, and it describes kind of her emotional state while she's flying and how she's dealing with, all these emotions that she doesn't know how to verbalize, because, in the show, she's not really big brain, think through things. She's more do first and then think later. And they really capture that well, and how a person who behaves that way might have an internal discussion with themselves. Her internal monologue is very consistent, and it makes sense. One of my favorite lines in the whole book is, "That's why kids have moms, because they were literally too dumb to live." I mean, that's like my new favorite line ever. And I, maybe because I have kids, that's why you have moms, because you're literally too dumb to live. And it was just so bang on. We are going to talk about other characterizations in a sec. And I have some opinions about that. Some of them I think were better and some were minor. But I really felt that the central relationship in here, hearing Applejack, just when she would speak and talk and how her kind of mind works, I think there's a big difference, and it's a sign of maturity between, you have this paragon of honesty, but as you get older, you start to realize that what the truth is and what's necessary and all of that, like there's just these giant shades of gray, and I'm not being as eloquent as I'd like about that, but in your youth it's black and white, but as you get older, what is the truth and what function does it have, especially when you're responsible for other people's lives, really develops. There's a larger area of gray. And just to echo some other things that have been said, if you're going to decide to potentially traumatize a couple of kids, and saying that your mom doesn't even know who you are anymore, and doesn't have that relationship with you, and then cause all these questions and worries that no one has the answer to. I mean, you've got to have a pretty compelling reason to do that to the kids. And if I felt that Applejack, I don't think she behaved out of character. I'm not even sure that she made necessarily a bad decision in that moment, although, one of the kids did almost bite it. I would say that in another way that it rears its head, this decision to honesty crops up later when they do almost split up. And that's because I think one of the things that's eating at Applejack is that she feels like she's living a lie because things aren't fine, and that it's because she can't rectify that she can't, that's untenable to her to continue to lead this I guess you could call it a farce. I feel that's a word too strong, but this relationship that's just not what it is supposed to be or what it was, that brings the idea of separation to a head. And I feel that's so spot on for her character and for her moral compass. And I'll leave what I have to say about the other characterizations when we get to them.
Suni?
I just wanted to make a quick note because I didn't get to my general thoughts on this before. I actually thought Rainbow Dash was not completely out of character, but fairly out of character in this fic, which seems to be an unpopular opinion. I thought she was way too crass, way too dumbed down. I get that she's supposed to be a stupid... Yeah, flanderized, severely flanderized, in my opinion. And it's not necessarily that the core beats were off. I think the elements of how Rainbow and Applejack would work were there. Like, the actual plot beats were definitely right, but the character moments and the fact that she was so inattentive and so... I don't know. Maybe this is because I'm asexual, so I just don't get this particular aspect of relationships very well. But the fact she was so hyper focused on sex that it almost didn't matter that it was Applejack. It was just Applejack is hot, want to fuck Applejack, let's date Applejack so I can fuck Applejack. I didn't get that at all. That was not Rainbow to me. Like, she being the element of loyalty, and maybe this is just my interpretation. I guess this is a perfectly fine interpretation of her character if she were way dumber and cruder. But my interpretation is, being the element of loyalty, she would be a bit more careful about who she dates, just because that's a really strong commitment. And the fact she's portrayed as being so inattentive to Applejack's needs, when I feel in the show she's a lot more nurturing than people give her credit for. Like, it's canon.
Just going to interrupt and say, remember, she did trade Fluttershy for... Oh God, what was it? Wouldn't trade you.
That's a good point. She sold Fluttershy into slavery for a comic
now,
book.
do we think that was a good character moment for Rainbow Dash, though?
No, but she realized afterwards that she'd fucked up, which kind of she did in this fic as well. Totally ignored Applejack's needs, and then afterwards thought, "Oh shit, you're actually not okay, are you?"
I will also say that happened in the span of like a day, and she pretty much immediately realized that she was in the wrong. This has the span of what, like a week for them to get accustomed to things that happen? Was it 2 days?
It was 2 days between Applejack is fine, and oh shit, Applejack's not fine.
Well, the problem is when cartoon horses get horny, everything goes crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it would
It's
be
a
more
cartoon
in
thing.
character. Can you tell that I'm trying very hard not to focus on the fact of just how much sex was mentioned in this fic? It was a little egregious for me. But again, might just be my personal flavor. I don't know. Maybe it's a little closer to her canon characterization that she would be a bit crass. And I'm not saying she's not insensitive or a jerk every now and then. And I appreciated that she recognized that she was being a jerk. But for her to not check on Applejack at all seemed out of character for me. And how extremely fixated on just the physical element of their relationship, and the fact she had to relearn that the reason she asked Applejack out was because she actually liked her as a person was just really off for me.
Great points, actually.
Niall?
Yeah, so just a few points I wanted to bring up. So first, Suni, you brought up like Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo's relationship as a point of her showing that she's dealt with kids before, but it's not like she ever really raised Scootaloo. She was there for her during certain times, but to the point of like screwing people over and then realizing you did it later. I mean, Scootaloo was just an attachment at the beginning. It was like, oh, I have a fan pony and it's cool to have her around. They don't really get to the bonding over or kind of being sisters until later on. And even then, it's never more than being like a big sister, which is very different than being a parent. I think that's one of the big reasons why she's so kind of against and apathetic with the kids is, one, she doesn't have that history with them, but two, she's from her perspective, she's woken up, she's lost the 15 years, her prime years, in her opinion. I think there's a line where she talks about that. And she's achieved every goal that she wanted and can't understand why past her would have given it up. Like, I was a Wonderbolt. Why in the hell did I give that up for these kids? And so I think it initially colors her view of the kids as well. Like, maybe not like she hates them, but oh my gosh, these are the reasons that I'm not a Wonderbolt anymore. Like, if I was still a Wonderbolt, I could be flying still. And it's that bitterness and confusion. And I think that's also why she's not paying attention necessarily to anybody else. She just woke up 15 years in the future with a family. She doesn't have the bandwidth to care about anything else because she's too busy trying to unfuck herself mentally because, oh my God, I have 3 kids and my life's essentially over. Which, going back to earlier, I mean, if you're in your early 20s and you wake up and you're like 35, I mean, I think most 20-something year olds would be horrified by that. They'd be like, oh my God, I'm old. My life is over. 30s are terrible. Like, and for those in their 30s, they're like, no, it's fine. It's not a big deal. And I feel like it's kind of that whole deal as to why she was acting that way. And then I also wanted to say I agreed with Illya's point earlier about Applejack. Like, she's too busy with other things to be dealing with Dash all the time. Like, she has the Zap Apples, she has the farm to continue the run. Also, the rest of the family is kind of out. It's her and Dash in the farm. Cranny Smith is gone. Big Mac and I believe it's Cheerly, they have their own kid and they live elsewhere. So Mac isn't around necessarily to help out with the harvest. And Bloom's moved out. So AJ has to manage 3 kids, a wife who isn't really her wife anymore, and all the responsibilities of the farm at the busiest season. And I think that's also something to take in mind, is just she's overwhelmed with everything. Those are my points.
Yeah, I didn't really have an issue with Applejack being busy. I figured why it made sense that she wouldn't immediately be able to adjust her plans to compensate for this sudden, very random thing to her that has happened. That's very dramatic. That was totally fine by me. I'm more miffed by the fact that Rainbow Dash was characterized as being so utterly incompetent and incapable with children that one nearly died because she wasn't paying attention. And I get why it happened. She was so fixated on flying and getting to try out these new tricks that, you know, she took her eye off of the filly that she was supposed to be watching, and she didn't expect that a Pegasus filly wouldn't be able to just catch herself if she fell off a cloud or something, because she was a Cloudsdale Pegasus, and she touches on that. It was more the general complete incompetence with children that did irk me a bit. Just being so crude and, I don't know, inexperienced with them, and seeming to kind of resent that she had to watch over them. I understand that she was in a really dramatic, sudden situation, but a big character point for her in the fic is that she adapts and immediately runs gun-ho into things without barely stopping. And I don't really have sympathy for the fact that she was an early 20-something who didn't have kids and suddenly has to deal with kids. And, well, of course she's going to be bad at parenting because she's a 20-something who didn't have kids, so she doesn't know how to keep them alive. In part because of what you mentioned with Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo, the fact that she was never a mother, she was a big sister figure. I helped raise my little sisters, and I'm obviously not their actual mom, but I did have to help keep them alive from a fairly young age. I was like 13 when I started helping out with them, and I would be up in the middle of the night and have to watch them for like hours at a time and make sure they didn't die. So I guess just as someone who has that personal experience from a way younger age, I don't have sympathy for any 20-something who thinks that they can't keep an older toddler alive for like an hour or however long Applejack was going to have to be away. It just seemed very, again, that point of Flanderization where Rainbow was just so dumbed down that even basic tasks that you would think she would be able to handle, she couldn't.
Oh, no, I get you. And the one thing I would say, and this isn't like I was raised by a single mom with a little brother that I had to do much the same thing. And so I totally get your point. But the counterpoint I would make is, once again, you lived in the house taking care of those children. Like Rainbow Dash lives as a single adult by herself, and the only time she sees Scootaloo is out in a public setting or at a set time that they're going to be interacting outside of like the house and whatnot. Like, she doesn't live with Scootaloo. She's not required to deal with Scootaloo's daily needs. Like, Scootaloo has, you know, parents or later aunts that take care of that. And it's, even in the early seasons, it's never implied that Rainbow Dash is like the caregiver for Scootaloo. She's the big sister that she gets to hang out with and look for life lessons, but also it's not like she's living with her and relying on her for her day-to-day needs. But no, I agree with you. And it's just, I've definitely had friends growing up that were that, and it, good, bad, or indifferent, there are definitely people out there that are terrified of children or have no interest in children at all. And it's not necessarily malice. It's just they're not engaged. And I felt like that really, that fit Dash, because she's always been driven by her goals, and it's never been indicated that like she wants more than her achievements, which is, you know, I want to be a Wonderbolt. I want to have the success. And so I felt like that was the only reason that it really fit her characterization. But nah, I totally get it.
Right. I was more sorry, Clever, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just real quick, I was more trying to highlight the connection you made of Rainbow Dash being Scootaloo's big sister figure, not her mother. Even with that established, she does have experience with children, and she has taken Scootaloo on like camping trips and overnight stays and things like that. So she has experience watching children. It might not be experience watching any old kid, and it might be hard for her to get emotionally attached to that kid, but she has had to take care of at least someone else's child for an extended period of time, and especially when as rambunctious as Scootaloo, and a filly that isn't a strong flyer.
Didn't Scootaloo almost drown on their camping trip?
Yeah, and she couldn't sleep.
It was because she snuck out in the middle of the night, though, and Rainbow Dash was the one who found her.
Okay, right.
Right.
Just a point about crassness, because that was brought up. And I have to say that is something that I noticed as well initially. I was like, whoa, we got a thirsty mare here. What's going on? And I will say, as much as I did like the characterization of Rainbow Dash just in general, At first, that kind of felt a little odd, but then I realized, for me, it was like, well, but we're reading a story that's not been sanitized for, Y7, which is what I think it comes up with on Netflix. Like what would a 20-something Rainbow Dash who's all about being awesome be? And it didn't bother me when I kind of went, all right, remember, this isn't being sanitized for a young audience. This is, what would a 20-something person like that be? And I think the only thing that really bugged me about her crassness was not so much that she was being crass like that, but that in this interpretation, this unsanitized, unfettered version of the characters and their relationship was that Applejack, it didn't seem to bother Applejack at all. Like it was Applejack's reaction to her advances at the beginning that I found actually to be a little more unsettling. So I was like, I would think that would turn Applejack like right off in my mind, and I don't know if that's right or it's wrong, but because the plot moved quickly on past it and we kind of ended up where we were, I forgave it and I didn't think much of it until we brought it up in this discussion. So I thought that was a point to make.
Yeah, I can see how it would be a completely valid interpretation that Rainbow being so forward would turn Applejack off. I kind of took it at face value that the implication there was Applejack is used to dealing with Rainbow Dash, because again, and this is a point against that scene, but the opposite direction for me, they're like best friends. They hang out a lot, and it's implied they have a pretty close relationship. They engage in whole contests together just for the thrill of competing. That's one of the things I love about AppleDash, is because they are so emotionally compatible. I didn't really have a problem with Applejack being able to sidestep Rainbow Dash being an idiot, because I think she's pretty used to dealing with Rainbow Dash being an idiot. But I did have a problem with Rainbow Dash being so hyper fixated on sex, something we haven't seen her being focused on in the show, and that I would need some convincing she would be so intensely focused on, because that's just not how I mentally characterize her or how I operate as a person, because I'm asexual. I just thought it was character breaking that she was so totally obsessed with sex that she completely forgot who Applejack was and about Applejack's needs, and just focused so hard on that she
broke the universe.
Would do literally anything, including ruining Applejack's livelihood, even if she didn't think that was what would happen. It's hard for me to imagine her being so completely obsessed with this thing that could happen, getting to fucking bang her best friend, who might as well not be her best friend for all she gives a shit about who it is, just hot pony, that she would break ever free weather. A weather pony would break ever free weather just to get laid. Like, would she think that she would need to do that? I mean, come on.
Well, I guess it says more about who I was at 20 to think nothing of that at all.
Yeah, I can't relate.
Just to expound on what Suni said, there was the one scene where Applejack was coming on really strong to Rainbow Dash, and it looked like they were just about to, looked like the curtains are about to go down, and Applejack, they're just getting in the moment, and Applejack says, "Tell me you love me," and Rainbow Dash is like, "Ah," and then Applejack was like, "Well, just tell me you want to love me," and Rainbow Dash is like, I don't know what love is. So tell me if I was completely misremembering that scene. But even worse than Rainbow Dash just being a horny horn dog throughout large swaths of the fic, but also just not knowing what love is, not having any idea of what it was Applejack Rainbow Dash's very first relationship ever, and she's just completely clueless.
He would have so told her he loved her for that. He would have done it.
I'm not
You reckon
sure.
Rainbow Dash? I don't think Rainbow Dash would have lied to Applejack, because that's one of the cornerstones of the plot. Hangs on Rainbow Dash would not lie to the element of honesty Applejack, and if she had, Applejack would have fucking known.
But she doesn't know what love is at all.
I think it's more like romantic love. Like, the impression I got of that, and I'm going to chime in, sorry, Niall, because I have said basically nothing for ages. I think that what Rainbow Dash was saying was that she knows what love is, but she doesn't know what romantic love feels like because she's never felt it before. And it's one thing to know something intellectually of this is what other people or other ponies have said it feels like, but having never experienced it yourself, you wouldn't know how to recognize it, which is why later on when she starts to build that relationship a bit more, she goes, oh, this is what it feels like. And that happens in a lot of romance fics, especially with one half of a couple who's very inexperienced. It can go one of two ways. Either every single time feels like you're in love, or you never feel like you're in love until you're actually in love and realize all the relationships before weren't love, if that makes sense. So Rainbow Dash panicking, getting very overstressed and saying, I don't even know what love is. How can I say that I love these kids or love you? I care about you. I don't know if that's love. That felt kind of in character for me, that she's didn't understand her own emotions enough to put names to them. And let's be honest, Rainbow Dash would probably be very, very frightened of the concept of falling in love with just one pony who lives on the ground and anchoring herself to that pony in their life for the rest of her life, when she was in that mindset of haven't even become a Wonderbolt yet. Flying is the best thing, being free is the best thing. I can't see her immediately going, yeah, totally, I want to, what would seem to her, shackle myself to this house on the ground, this pony I kind of fancied but didn't know romantically yet, and these kids who I'm being told are mine, but I don't even know. I can see her there going, I'm not in a headspace to figure out if I'm even cognizant of what love is right now.
I think it's actually a sign of her maturity.
What, recognizing that she recognizing what she doesn't know?
Well, just that in that moment, rather than going, oh, I'm going to say whatever to get laid, it's this moment of her acknowledging that lying in that moment has huge consequences, and it's not something that she can take back. And in it's a moment of clear-headedness for her in a way. And I think it's a mark of that she isn't just a completely stupid 20-year-old, but that this is hallowed ground. And I think it's even potentially one of those points where there's a subtext, a story behind that, that could be told somewhere else, but they don't get into for space reasons and whatnot. But there is probably a reason why she doesn't want to just upright and say that. And I don't know if anyone else has been in that situation where they've been in a different place in a relationship than someone else has. But that can be really scary if someone is suddenly much more committed than you are in a relationship, and they're wanting the same out of you, and you're just not there. And I felt that was honestly portrayed.
Yeah, I think that's how I kind of felt as well. Suni?
I actually interpreted that as her fear of love being stronger than her want to get laid. You could take it as a sign that she was developed and more mature, but if we're going with the timeline of this is 2 days, she can't possibly have changed enough to have made better decisions in that short of a time frame. For other plot points, I don't think that the Rainbow Dash who broke time to get laid very suddenly decided, oh, I don't care about my personal wants, because it would be wrong to lie to get this thing I want, because she's already lying. And she's just having to keep up that lie because it was a lie she told to get laid. So it's not like she's against lying to Applejack to get into her proverbial pants. I took that as more she was taken aback by the idea that this obviously would mean something different to Applejack than it would to her, and that idea scared her. Not that she actually really cared how Applejack felt in that moment.
Niall?
I agree with Suni. Like, I feel like it was more fear than anything else. Like, there was a little bit of her being a little more aware. But yeah, I think it's definitely the fear of the commitment, and also the fear of stepping into shoes that she's not ready for, or she's, like you were saying, it's too foreign. Because there is that big point later in the fic where she sees the pictures of herself as a Wonderbolt, and later on, and she sees, I think it was her smile or her look on her face. And her point is, like, I don't know what that look means, and I don't know what it would take for me to have that. So, yeah, I totally agree with that. Also, just a little side point. I don't know if we're getting into this yet or not, but like the whole time travel thing, like everyone's aware there was no time travel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are now.
I think that was just for the no spoiler portion of the review.
Okay, it's just
Yeah,
I
we're
thought
fully
we were
into
past
spoilers
it.
now.
Yeah, because like she never goes anywhere. She just gets her brain mapped by the Everfree because she kicked clouds. She's an idiot.
Well,
It was
Because she flew into a storm and fucking died.
it was
The
just
Everfree brought her back.
it was just brain damage the whole time.
Yeah, we are going to get into the ending because there
Oh,
are
yeah.
thoughts and feelings and opinions on the. It's not time travel. It's just brain damage. That's so much better.
I want to just quickly touch on something before we get too far away from it, and that's the idea that it's not maturity, it's fear. But I want to make the argument or the counterpoint that if she wasn't mature, she wouldn't feel that fear. That fear of intimacy, that fear of getting closer, if she didn't understand how important that was and what consequences might be, she would just go barreling ahead and go for it. But because there's a part of her that recognizes that these are important big things, she is afraid of them. And I think that there's like, I think that that's connected. I don't think that they need to be mutually exclusive. I think you can have a respect. Maybe the word isn't maturity. Maybe there's a better word for it, but you have a respect for that concept, and that's why you fear it.
Do we have anything else to say about Applejack and Rainbow Dash? Because I've kind of needed the bathroom for like 20 minutes.
Sorry, but I
Might be
do.
a good time for a bathroom break. We can
when we come
Because my
back,
back teeth are floating.
when we come back, I want to respond to Clever, but yeah, we can take a bathroom break.
And
Yeah,
so do
I can edit out this break in the middle, but I really need to go pee. Thank you.
You're good.
Bladder. Mah.
Hey. I work in the one building where the toilets are located. I have perfected the art of running downstairs in high heels and then running back up again before.
You work in high heels?
I'm 5'2".
She's 4'1", for God's sake.
Yes, I have the body of a 6'9" supermodel, but somebody pressed on my head and it all went outwards instead. So I'm 5'2" and really quite wide. Also, now going to be an outline.
the word you're looking for is thick.
With 2 C's.
Oh, finally, I can get an explanation for that ridiculously strange acronym. What does that mean?
Meme.
It means Rubenesque. It means Rubenesque, but
No,
people-
I know what it means as
Oh, okay.
far as what a person looks like, but what do the letters stand for?
It's not an abbreviation.
it's not an
Just a funny way of
abbreviation.
spelling thick.
It's to differentiate
Just
it as
embody.
It's
opposed.
just a word that somebody. It's got 2 C's at the end. For God's sake.
Yes.
You know what? It's dumb as hell. It's absolutely dumb as hell. But it's to differentiate from just with a K just as regular thick, right? And then the 2
When you're
C's.
referring,
Yeah.
when you're referring to a particularly curvaceous woman, you just use 2 C's, I guess.
It's
I
dumb.
don't-
It's dumb, and it's for people who don't have a vocabulary.
That's
I'm gonna say
World
that.
is so
I
much
would-
different than mine.
I would argue it's originally AAVE, so it's just a part of a particular dialect, and it got popularized because a lot of slang words get turned into memes, particularly ones like thick that just seem kind of ridiculous. But I don't think using it as a sign of someone not having vocabulary. I think it's just a particular dialect.
Agreed.
I mean, I think in a
I guess
primary-
because I teach high school kids, and I'm like, "Do you mean Rubenesque or voluptuous?" And they look at me like, what's that?" I'm like,
Mine thick.
"Yeah." So I would say that at least if you have a vocabulary and you choose to use that, so be it. I'm not trying to slander that, but where I got introduced to it from was for people who did not know any other words to describe, and that is their word go to for it. And
That's fine.
It's irritating as hell to me.
More thick girls for me.
I think in the internet community, it seems like instead of branching out with actual existing words, you're going to find people just altering the spelling to say, "Okay, I mean this, but in a different way, in a sort of in a mutually understood context." In cute picture circles, you will get SMOL for small because it's just it's like it's small, but you know what I mean when I say small. It's not small, it's the cute kind of small, and I think that that is the sexy kind of thick.
And there's another word I'm unfamiliar with.
The two
What
fucking
is it,
gingers,
Ilya?
cute, small, and
Please,
sexy,
Ilya,
thick.
we've got nothing but time. We're on bathroom break.
I'm trusting that this is going to be edited out of the final.
No.
No,
Dang
we
it,
should
dude.
totally include all this.
This is the fun part.
So what's your other word you're questioning, Ilya?
You name them. I mean, I see them all the time, and I have no fucking idea what anyone's ever talking about.
Where is that meme of the old man who's like, I have no idea what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, that's the one I am. Give me that one. I'll cling to it.
Grandpa Simpson, when he says, "Hey, I used to be with it, then they changed what it was. Now I don't know what's going on anymore. It'll
It's
happen
true.
to you."
Yeah, it's so true. And if I wasn't in the high school, I would have absolutely no effing clue. Period. And it brings me so much joy that being in the high school, I stay with it even if it pisses me off.
I
It
see
doesn't
it
piss me off.
happening.
It just
I
leaves me
see,
lost most of the time.
I see these trends. I see myself being left behind. I never thought it had happened, but I see TikTok and I'm just like, what? What
It'll
is this?
happen
Why?
more and more and more and more.
You
I
will
mean,
get
Gets
less
much
with
worse.
it.
I mean,
Actually,
it's all the subcultures. I mean, think about. I guess I don't know how old everybody here is, but like when I was growing up, we didn't even have cell phones, and like the only things that you knew were either what came from the TV or what was in your local group. And now I have Discord servers with people all over in all kinds of niches. Like they're slinging anime, they're slinging Pony, they're slinging all different kinds of things. And there's not a week that goes by that I'm not asking, what is this acronym or what is that? And you find out, oh, well, it was from this one really influential YouTuber. How did you not watch this? But that person has millions and millions of people that follow them. And so a term takes off in one day. And if you're not watching, you have no idea.
You're left behind. Consume or be left behind.
And you just became Epic Voice Guy.
I was always Epic Voice Guy.
No, I mean the literal guy with the million subscribers called Epic Voice Guy, just to give an illustration of what Nile means.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Yeah, just to say again, I said it in chat, Poggers means great.
What
Well,
the fuck is poggers?
Oh, okay.
It means brilliance.
No. So Pog originally came from Overwatch, which was play of the game. Play of the game was something that was great because you got all the attention because you did a good job. And then it became Poggers through Twitch and it evolved. So like that's a great example. Like Pog used to just be play of the game. And of course, whenever people hear that, they're like, what?
Pog wasn't just play of the game. Pog was also a thin piece of plastic.
Yes.
Like a giant tiddlywink
Yes.
in the 90s with a weird Captain Caveman-esque mascot.
That you would throw at a large stack of things that were made out of cardboard, little cardboard discs with things on them. Yeah, Pogs was also a game.
Yeah. Or if you were like me,
Completely.
throw them at your sister.
Completely different etymologies.
Yes.
Yeah, because if you say poggers to someone, they don't tend to go, ow, not the face!
I just say,
Not to
"Oh,
be
not the face" all the
confused.
time. Yeah.
Not to be confused with PAWG, whatever that means.
Oh,
That one's fat-ass white girl.
fat with a PH.
Okay, now
Another
we're into
example of
fat.
how you just
What's
say
the
something.
PHAT? Does that have is that an acronym?
Oh,
That
well,
is
that
just
means
another
fat with
robotic.
two C's.
Before there was thick, there was fat with a PH.
There was.
Yep.
But that's not an acronym.
No.
No.
Pog, P-A-W-G is, but not fat.
Ilya, I would think
You
you
know
would
what?
remember
I-
that
I-
becoming a thing.
I'm so sorry.
You did. That fat with PH was the early 90s, Ilya. You were around for that bit.
I love this.
Not
This is the best.
really. I wasn't really around.
You know what? I just want to say that I too have learned something today. I didn't know about fat ass white girls, so thank you. Thank you very much.
Clearly you don't have the same internet history I do.
You know that? Jesus.
Nobody has to look
No.
at my internet search history.
Oh, goodness.
You know that episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where Captain Picard gets teleported down to the planet with the captain of the alien ship, and he just kept saying, like he understands the words that they're saying, but not the context.
Yes.
And there's just no going back. This is what we're experiencing right now. It's Damon and Gelada
For a second
Tanagra.
there, you were going to say when Captain Picard got transported down to a palace that was just full of fat-ass white girls.
Oh, to be in a palace full of fat-ass white girls.
No, that was a
Engage.
different video.
I'm going
I
to
saw
say,
that
it's
on the
been a long
internet.
time since I've seen Next Generation, but I don't remember that episode.
It was
I
Rise
perhaps
of
wouldn't
12.
have jumped ship to Voyager quite as quickly.
It would be Riker jumping on that ship.
That's right.
True, yeah. Probably post-mustache Riker as well.
Yes.
Oh God.
I'll just sit here in my little Janeway camp.
I think the moral of the story is we're all slipping slowly into irrelevancy.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, there we go. The voice of let's get on with it.
It's like, right, your bladder's empty, let's get back to the story. We need to talk about the dramatic lesbian horses.
But fat means thick.
And that's what we'll come back on.
That clears it up so well.
I'm so glad I could help.
Can I just say I am kind of embarrassed and depressed that I knew what half of those things meant.
I want to add on to that and say that I think people who haven't had the pleasure of interacting in jobs where they deal with the general populace, if you only ever deal with a subsection of the populace, you don't have an appreciation for just how terrible humanity is in general. Just
Suni has
Or how broad it-
lots of stories.
Not even from just retail, but you fucking reminded me of something that happened in my high school art class. There was this kid, we had this project to do some fucking painting, whatever, as you do in art class. And he asked the teacher, Miss, I need some purple paint. And she said, well, the purple's all being used, but you could make it. He was like, what? She was like, how do you make purple? And he was just flabbergasted. Like the idea that you could make purple. She's like, how do you make orange? You put red and yellow together. How do you make green? You put blue and yellow together. How do you make purple? And he didn't know. He was a senior in high school and he didn't know what colors went together to make the color purple.
Yep.
he needs to watch that Oprah Winfrey film.
They need to teach what the
Read a
actual
book
fucking
on
primary colors are.
subtractive color theory.
No, then he'd finally know how many colors he'd need to make the color purple.
and
Wah,
Whoopi Goldberg
wah,
and
wah,
Steven Spielberg.
wah.
You get purple. Yeah. So I was just absolutely reminded when Sleva said that of the pen at your work and how many pictures you have posted in the server of this growing signage on the pen.
My manager has suggested I start changing the smiley face slowly into a frowny face until it's just mad. Just give it little angry eyebrows as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Should I tell this? Yeah.
Yeah, you might want to give context for this conversation.
Okay, I'll tell the story and then we should probably move on so it's not 4 fucking hours long. So I work in retail, and the store I work at, we have one scanner on one of our registers, the little pin pad where you put your card in, that is busted. So the touch screen doesn't work, but the pen works fine. And they just have not deigned to fix it because my work, being in Texas, has not deigned to make fucking... What the fuck was I saying? Can you tell I got 4
that you
hours of
work
sleep?
in Texas.
Yeah, I'm from Texas. That should explain what just happened with my brain. Not from Texas.
Oh no.
I live in Texas, and even with the Texas heat, you would think AC would be a priority. No. My work's AC has been broken for a full fucking year, and they still haven't fixed that. So a pin pad where the pin is still perfectly usable, fuck it. They'll figure it out. They won't. They won't figure it out. What's going to happen is someone, and I don't know which of my coworkers it was originally, but someone decided to put a nice, tiny little note right on the front of the scanner. It was this itty-bitty little thing, like 11-point font that said, please use pen. And it had a little smiley face. No one used the pen. No one could figure it the fuck out. These people would stand there, jamming their finger on the screen over and over, and eventually I would have to tiredly say, for the 100th time that day, you gotta use the pen. No one, ever thought on their own to use the fucking pen, and there was something on it already telling them to do that. No one saw it. So I said, okay, some people have visual issues, so maybe it just needs to be a little bigger and the font a little more bold. So I took the existing sign off, and I figured it would be okay if I just made it just a tiny bit bigger. And I still put the smiley face, so it didn't seem passive aggressive, just a little sign that they could see, nothing too obtrusive, so they know when you jam your finger on the fucking screen for the 5th time in a row, it's probably time to try the pen. No one tried the pen. No one. Of the 500 fucking people I see in a day, not one goddamn person ever managed to see the fucking sign. So across the past month, I have been making this stupid fucking sign increasingly bigger with more aggressive bold font, and this past time I finally got fed up and was like, okay, there can be no excuse. I'm going to make it so obstructively huge on the pen pad that it takes up half the thing, and you have to put your finger on the note telling you to use the pen before you actually get to the point of needing to ask me if you need to use the fucking pen. So not only did I make the sign as big as it physically could be without completely obstructing their ability to touch the fucking yes, the amount is okay, I am ready to keep paying sign, I also put it in Spanish because some people don't speak English. So I thought, okay, maybe, there's a language barrier or something. So now on this fucking pen pad, there's a huge, in bold, purple and black Sharpie with an arrow sign that says use pen, smiley face, pointing to the left with an arrow to the pen, which has a piece of receipt paper wrapped around it so that you can more easily see that a pen is there, with a translation above it that says, how do you say it? Usa pluma, with a smiley face, with an arrow pointing to the same goddamn pen. 2 signs in huge font, bold font, pointing to the left to a pen that has been specifically made so you can see it better. And the first 10 people I got who had to use that scanner pad didn't use the pen. So finally, I couldn't think of any way to make it more obvious, but a customer suggested, oh, you should highlight it.
No. So one thing I think might help with that, tell them why. Use pen, screen won't take finger. If you tell them why, you'll probably get a couple more of them that will use it. Because they're thinking that you're just oh, you gotta use the pen. I'm not gonna use the pen. I'm a Texan. I'm gonna use my finger because I use it everywhere else. Screw this.
Ain't no sign gonna tell me what to do.
Pretty much.
You know what the problem is everyone thinks, oh, my finger's magic.
That too. Oh, God.
I am Alex Mack.
You know what?
Bing! I made it work.
Speak for yourselves. My finger is magic.
Run away.
Yeah.
Sorry, I puked a little too.
All right, I'm head out.
We were talking about a fan fiction at one point.
Yes.
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 Time to get back to that.
Yes.
Way to ruin it, Clever.
No, we planned this. I established beforehand one more story, and then we're done. We got to get back to it. We got to.
Yeah, we're talking about the characterization for Twilight and the rest of the main 6 with how they, what the hell they would do it in the background. And specifically, I want to talk about the Fluttershy pairing.
Yeah.
Because I kind of thought it was adorable. Especially in a pre-Discord world.
Well, I wasn't quite so enthusiastic about what I had to say until you said that. One thing, just because we left on it, I was going to respond to Clever real quick about time travel. I just wanted to say time travel is relative. I think it could be argued that there is time travel, but only for Rainbow Dash, because a copy of her brain was made in the Zap Apple Storm and implanted into her head, displaced through time. So I would argue that is a form of time travel, just not for the entire realm of reality. But also, this is not.
I'm sorry. Can I poke in here just a second, just before we move too far away from that? Can we just point out that there was a copy of Rainbow Dash's brain in the cloud? She had a cloud
backup.
Go Rainbow Dash.
Your Rainbow Dash has stopped sinking. Go on, Sunny.
I'm very sorry, Sunny. You can continue now. That was very rude.
That was so fucking funny and something I haven't even thought of that I really appreciate you putting that out because holy shit, she did just get auto synced to the fucking cloud and re-download it into her own head.
That happens. And then it restores an old copy, and then you lost 15 years. Oh, so annoying.
Okay, so then in the same case that Apple has Time Machine for that same purpose, then I will only, in that limited context, agree maybe some time travel.
Yeah.
Well, if it restores you to your last save point.
Exactly.
Oh my god, she lost her life and reloaded!
But that's literally what I was thinking when I had read the ending. It was like, this is why I loved so much of the fic, and then just went, okay, this just crossed the line into video game logic. And this is before Rick and Morty did it.
Rainbow Dash went Blue Pony.
Shit, she did. Blue Pony of Death.
Oh. Okay.
Sunny, go on quickly before we derail
I
anymore.
was just saying, this is not a pre-Discord fic. It might be pre-Season 9 fic,
You
but
know what?
Discord? Where the fuck was he?
Not quite what I meant. Yeah, I meant more that, like, this is pre the very overt Fluttercord shipping in canon. Because, like, it picked up along the way. It did become very overtly shippy in canon, but this is before that was a thing. He literally was just kind of, he's reformed now. There we go. He'll be back later.
Hold on. Let me double check, because I thought this came out after they had been established as being fairly close.
Not to the point of being overtly shipped. Like, the episodes that were centered very much on them came later after Starlight Glimmer was really a thing.
This is made after
they were
Make New
more
Friends
friends.
but Keep Discord.
It is, and it's after Discord betrayed them to T-Rex and then got forgiven at the end of season 4, but not by much after that moment. Because imagine Fluttershy at that point, it was like, fuck, bitch, you betrayed me!
You would think, huh?
It doesn't explain where the hell he was in general, but yeah, this might be one of the reasons that Skywriter said it felt like an early seasons fic, because Discord was just not even counted. Anyhoodle, Twilight and the rest of the main 6 in their brief appearances. Anyone want to comment on their characterization, how we felt about that? Clever, go on.
Well, I'll just start us off, and then other people will show me up on this. But I really felt that Twilight was fairly well characterized in her role. It was a very specific role of being the problem solver. Yeah, it was a bit of a plot device, but I didn't think that in how she was written, she was all that out of character for her at all. Pinky, actually, I thought was out of the main 6, probably one of the better written as she was. And Spike, and I have a comment that kind of jumps to a later question about Spike. I thought Spike was well written in like the brief couple of sentences that he appears, because he wasn't flat. He had some character, and he was a bit mischievous, and I liked that. What I didn't like was just how it was superficial, the differences between what we saw 15 years ago in the show and to where there was now. Like, he's bigger and he's a little scarier looking, but I mean, but he's still somehow Twilight's assistant, just kind of living at the castle, not doing his own thing. And that was probably my biggest critique of the characterizations. And I don't know so much if it's the characterizations or just that the author really didn't choose for much to happen to these characters in the past 15 years. Kudos to the author for predicting the cheese sandwich ending that the canon decided to go with. I know Sunny's gonna not particularly care for that's even a thing, and I agree. I think that Pinky had a much bigger, better destiny than settling down with cheese, but that's a side point. I don't think it's out of character massively. I just think it's a missed opportunity. I thought that Fluttershy was well written, but I have a huge problem with that she was shipped with bulk biceps, and maybe in there's logic to that, but I just kept shaking my head. I was like, what?
Because they were featured together in canon and clearly got along really well, and he was trying desperately to impress her.
Yeah, I that was a what the fuck moment for me, and I'll just. But again, I was like, well, whatever, like it was literally briefly mentioned as kind of an update, and then we moved on from it, and I did too. She didn't. Again, she was kind of in the scene that she was in. She was there, and it wasn't. I mean, she was kind of mousy. She was Fluttershy, like earlier season Fluttershy, and I didn't have a problem with how she was characterized. I thought Rarity actually was the one for me that struck me as being the flattest and was the least developed. Like someone said plot device. I thought Rarity was solely there to get some, to ask the uncomfortable questions and to get, Applejack and Rainbow Dash, talking about, their relationship in that context. And I'm not saying that couldn't have happened or whatnot. That felt the most artificial to me out of all of them. The fact that she had a divorce, I could see that, I guess. But one of the themes that seemed to run through all these characters was that they all seemed to kind of pair off and settle down. And for being, the elements of harmony, that just felt really flat. And I get that we're not really telling their story in this story. It's supposed to be about, AppleDash. But as terms of, having Rainbow feel like she's missed a lot, I think just having them grow up and get married, there was a missed opportunity to make her feel like she missed even more, I guess, and to then heighten that dramatic tension and that turmoil that she's going through. I probably have other things to say, but that's enough talking straight for me for a bit.
Skywriter?
I mean, I did think it was a little bit strange that everything was very pat and everybody had, they all had very pat relationships. I guess in a way that was to possibly make Rainbow Dash feel even more like an outsider. It's like, well, all my friends want pat relationships, obviously, because of how they appear in canon. So that gives her a greater fish out of water thing. I mean, I can see why it was done dramatically. Not sure that I agree with it 100% going forward. I think a lot of it is that despite the fact that they all settled down and got married, they all got settled down and got married in such a way that didn't really change all that much. So it feels like, oh, these are exactly the same characters that we've always. Again, you can be forgiven a little bit on that because none of these characters were this focal point of this fic. I mean, obviously, what we get out of this, basically the sum total is, I think, like a third-party description once about, this is where everybody end up, and then they have like one scene in the spa where they all talk. Other than Twilight, that's about all we get from the other characters. So I guess we can be forgiven for not actually going into a lot of detail. It did seem strange that in the time that Rainbow Dash was supposed to have canonically, and this time without, as is eventually revealed, without any kind of magical manipulation, without this being her older, more mature self transplanted into her body, that Rainbow Dash goes from a crass, physical intimacy craving commitment phobe to this most loving, caring, happy pony. It's just a sea change. It's just a super dramatic change in that 15 years. And everybody else is just pretty much the same. They're just pretty much the canon characters we've always seen. Not
Amen.
Much is different. Spike is big. Rarity is a little bit burned from a bad relationship, but that just means that she's a little more overdramatic, which is already a canon trait. So, yeah, it was a little bit odd, but again, wasn't the focus of the fic, so I gave it a pass in this particular case.
Who was it who was interrupting just then?
That was me.
Okay, Clever, do you want to go?
Just amen to. I agree with all points there. That it was a bit flat, but I gave it a pass because it was such a short little bit and not completely irrelevant, but it was sort of I forgave it.
I was going to say, I think it was a bit intentional on the author's part that the main six hadn't really changed much besides Rainbow Dash. Because Rainbow Dash was being launched into this future and seeing all of the tangible changes that happened to her, to quote, future self, I guess. But the point sort of the fic, as we saw in the author's after note that Scribbler linked in chat, was that your friends and you might feel like the same ponies, but not realize how much in your lives have changed and what you're actually doing with them. So like RD, before her brain got scrambled and re-downloaded into her body, may have still felt like the original Rainbow Dash. And I think there's sort of a subtext going on there of the point is that it's the same Rainbow Dash the entire time. She just got a fresh perspective of how different she'd become without really realizing it. I felt like it was a bit of the point that they hadn't changed much, just to hammer home that you can feel like the same people and even in personality be the same people, but to other folks, especially to your kids, if you have them, you're a completely different person.
Everyone was a person before they had kids, before they were mum and dad.
Yeah, you are actually
Yeah,
human.
lies.
Well, they're ponies, but
That feeling when you find photos of your parents from your age and think, what the fuck were you wearing? You brought up the author's note, Sonny. The author's note. And I'll admit, I had completely forgotten that was a thing, even though I read the last chapter of this fic less than 24 hours ago, so that it will be fresh in my mind for this podcast. Because I've spent most of the last month reading this story in fits and starts, but I put off the last chapter so it would be absolutely crystal clear. And also, I'm kind of glad I did that because it meant my disappointment wasn't a week old by the time we got to the podcast. Does anyone think it would be prescient for me to read out some of the author's notes from the end of the story going forward, since they've naturally come up in conversation anyway?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. It's not the whole thing, obviously, and also because I've just closed the fucking window!
Control-Shift-T.
Yeah, I'm redoing it. It's literally, as I'm coming to read it, I hit the X. It's like, yay, I am competent. I should clearly be in charge of this podcast. Right, okay.
Hashtag
So-
NP is best moderator.
You are, though. It's not even a joke. Right, so I'm not going to read all of it, because some of it is her thanking her moderators. Not moderators, her beta readers. Nobody thanks the moderator, especially when the moderator is me. Sonny says Scrib NP is just IRL Twyjack. Fucking is, you know. And considering that Big Mac is effectively male Applejack in a lot of ways, and we voice Twilight and Big Mac.
Gosh dang it, Scribbler, get to the dang point. Read the dang author's notes.
Okay, I'm not going to read them in Twilight Boys, though. Okay, so Bookplayer says, it occurs to me that Lost Time is kind of the ultimate Bookplayer shipping fic. While none of it was intentional, it shares important themes with the AppleDash project, Best Young Flyer, Wet Feathers, Tunnel of Love, and The Homesteading. By the way, Tunnel of Love and Homesteading are both on my channel as readings, and Wet Feathers is available on Goombass's channel if you look for it. It's not surprising that these are close... Illya says, has NP got the hat? I don't know. He needs to come and visit me in the summer and bring a hat. It's not surprising these are themes close to my heart. The futility and the frustration of waiting on perfection and missing the good things in front of you. The need for strength to be matched by flexibility. Having people or things to take care of as a worthy goal and enjoyable experience in itself. And the importance of not just communication, but observation and empathy. I come back to these time and again in shipping because, to me, these are the core of having a healthy relationship and, really, of being a mature adult. The theme I did have in mind when I started this fic was an observation that I and most of my friends have made, that we never really feel like adults, at least not so far. Somewhere inside, we're all still 20-year-olds who have somehow ended up with mortgages and kids. We've gotten way more mature in a lot of ways, but that totally doesn't count when we need to install a dishwasher or check with the pediatrician to make sure we haven't managed to screw up our kids yet. That's when the 20-year-old comes out and says, they're all going to see that you're in your 30s and you have no idea what you're doing. Some of us are better at hiding it, but I think everyone I know has had those moments. Having it happen to Dash literally, and showing her growing into the role, was my way of exploring that feeling while pointing out that whatever gets dropped in your lap, you will figure it out if it's important to you. Finally, there's a very subtle theme running through it about how great it is to have family around you that you can grab as babysitters in case of emergencies or urgent situations. On that note, I want to take a moment to talk about the kids. Apple Leaf was always intended to be an important part of the story. I wanted a kid who was old enough to be a pony Dash would have to interact with, who would ask questions and not be distracted from them without some kind of explanation. And I wanted a kid old enough for Dash to actually find interesting. When I was new here on Fanfiction, I read a story about Dash raising an Earth Pony kid who was obsessed with flying, and I've always loved the idea. I wasn't a fan of the direction that story took, but the idea stuck with me. The important thing for me was to make his admiration for her and his personality different than Scootaloo, so I gave him a much more Apple family pragmatism. One commenter compared him to AJ, but actually I think he's going to be a lot like Mac as he grows up, just more comfortable communicating. Cider Splash was originally intended to play a much smaller role, even as far as the outline, but she's just that perfect age to be adorable and make a mess. Of things, so she kept showing up to drive her parents crazy. Honestly, I think she'll be doing that for them for the years. I'm going to start that sentence again. Honestly, I think she'll be doing that to them for years, especially AJ. She has Dash's enthusiasm and no harm, no foul sneaky streak, and seems to be aimed straight at Sweet Apple Acres. When she gets old enough to take an active role in running the farm, AJ is in trouble. Cider took over a lot of the role Orchard Sky was supposed to play, actually. 1-year-olds are a lot like pet monkeys, I speak from experience, but they're also easier to keep under control than sneaky 5-year-olds, so he really just ended up adding to chaos for the most part. I didn't plan on his relationship with Tank. It actually came up because when AJ brought Tank out in Chapter 3, she mentioned that Sky likes to chew on his propeller, but I think it worked well as something to make Rainbow Dash more sympathetic toward him. And the rest of it is thanking her editors. That may be just to add some context to some of the ideas, especially when it comes to the characterization of Dash there, considering we were still somewhat on the point of characterization. Which, interestingly, we have 12 points to get through. We've been recording for 2 hours, and this is point 4.
Let's move on.
Yeah, I have nothing to add on the characterization of Twijack.
You're living it.
Fucking Freudian
as
slip
you
there.
should. As you should.
I have nothing to add on the characterization of Twilight and the others. Fuck. Oh, God. What have you done to me, Sonny? You're making all my Freudian slips come out now.
Polyshipping is best.
Freudian slips look good.
You keep on your rarer pie, I will keep on my Twijack.
They work perfectly fine together. I'm good with that.
We'll move on before Niall, the Rarejack shipper, chimes in. Clever?
Oh, no, I'm fine.
I think I'm just accidentally hitting that button because I like hitting that button. My apologies.
It's become a nervous dick. Witness me! Right, so we're going to move on to point 5. Impressions of the prose style. How does this story read? Is it trying to achieve any particular tone, and how well does it achieve this? Does anyone want to go first to talk about the prose style? Sunny?
I feel bad because I feel like I'm the one who keeps talking first. But
Hey, it's a 60,000 word fic and you have strong opinions. I think the time and effort investment in this story is okay if you would want to talk about
very
it.
sweet. At first, I was a little bothered by the prose. I felt it was really simplistic and repetitive. I think that is done intentionally to a point. I think it is very obviously, especially having read the author's note and a bit of other things they've written, a break from their capabilities as a writer into intentionally writing a bit simpler, with shorter sentences and less flowery language, just because RD is kind of the pseudo narrator. But I think there were parts.
It's third person limited.
Yeah. But I think there were points where that was also not as intentional, especially with the uses of smirked and grinned and smiled. There's a lot of smirking and grinning going on in this fic, and I just wish some control effing had been done to make sure that while being simplistic enough to get the point across, it wasn't so simple that you're just spelling everything out all the time to the point of kind of obnoxious repetition. So the prose at first wasn't my thing, but I did get that it was probably intentionally a break from the usual writing style. And it worked to an effect.
Illya?
Once again, I have to say I thought it was beautifully written. Yeah, it was a little simple, but it didn't take away from the story, in my opinion. Probably don't have a lot to say about that. I did find it hard to get into at the beginning. But I think that was just because I really didn't give a shit about any of the characters. And through Dash, I sort of came to the same position he was in eventually. So I thought it was well written, really did.
See, I actually found that because of the simpler writing style, that for me, it became a story I could gobble up with large portions spread across a large amount of time, that I'd never felt like I had forgotten anything that was happening earlier on in the story. when I came back to it a couple of weeks later. Because I I did the trick I said I would not do last time I picked a fic, and chose one I hadn't read before, and that I had started reading, and then I picked it to force myself to finish reading it, because I thought it was going to be a good story from all the reputation. And it was something that I found I could get into rather easily because of the simpler writing style in this, that when I left off and when I came back, it was easy to immerse myself back into the story. That I have a terrible habit of starting a book and then my life goes crazy and I have to come back to the book later and I've forgotten what's going on. And I have to either restart the book, which part of my brain is just going, no, we've done this already, and leave it and start another book. For this one to allow that to happen, because crazy shit happened, as it always does, and I came back to it weeks later and was able to pick it up straight away, I actually found that preferable because of the writing style, that it was easy to get back into and to just trot along with the story again without having to go back and revisit things. Narrator, what do you think of the prose style?
Not much to say about the prose or the writing style, other than I thought it was very good, well written in general. My objections with the story are more to do with some of the substance.
Niall?
Yeah, my experience was similar to yours, except I just couldn't put it down. So
you mainlined it in a night, didn't you?
Yeah, in 2 days I read it, and then I read it or listened to it through the audio reading through Fanfic 2 more times since. Like, I really enjoyed this fic, and I know you brought up earlier that I'm a Rarejack shipper, but like I've said before, no ship is necessarily a bad one for me. I have my preferences, but it's whether or not it's done well. And like the way this was written was so enjoyable. Like I loved it. You could have, even if you didn't necessarily like this ship, I felt like the way it was written was just really well done. I enjoyed it, but I consumed this. I could not put it down.
Yeah. I remember because you sent me a message on Discord just going, oh, I really wish we were doing this one, because I haven't edited the La Pomme Boutique review yet, because life is crazy and it's a 3-hour long podcast. But at the end of that, depending on how I choose to edit it, originally we weren't going to do Lost Time. We were going to do a much shorter fic that was not very good, but still personally very beloved. When you sent me that message, it made me think, maybe there's more to Lost Time. Maybe I wish we had gone with my initial choice. And I'm not sorry that we did. But the whole reason we're talking right now is actually adjacent to you, Niall. Otherwise, we'd probably be still going on with the tiny ox scratch. So, anybody else got any impressions on the prose style and what Bookplayer was trying to achieve with the tone and writing choices? Clever?
Well, first, I'd like to say that I felt that the prose style really helped with the pacing, which has sort of been touched on. And much like Niall, I consumed this book. I started reading and I could not stop. And I finished it in a couple days. And I've been trying to get my wife to read it ever since. And I will succeed. I will make her.
She's too busy making beautiful crochet ponies.
Yes, she's too busy making beautiful crochet ponies.
Plug.
Buy my stuff. Or, I mean, buy her stuff. Anyway. But and I don't know if this really fits in this section that we're talking about, but I didn't see another one. One of the examples of the tight writing and the pacing that I got in this fic, and how a lot of time to me isn't really wasted with unimportant incidents, was like the use of like the flight goggles. And I just, because I aspire to write someday, and I read that part and how she used those flight, and when I say she, I mean Bookplayer, used holy crap, what an effective use of an inanimate object. And I was reminded of the idea of Chekhov's gun, that if you're going to spend any time talking about something, you'd better bring it up later. And when they're used to introduce the concept of Leaf being a flying expert despite being an earth pony. And later when they're lost, they end up serving to illustrate Rainbow Dash's struggle to accept the life that she has and the life or memories that she lost versus the life that she wants. And I was just, I was geeking out about how that one object was used to accomplish so much in that story. And I felt that was a great example of very thoughtful, tight writing. And I don't know where else to mention this other point, but I'll mention it here. That the description of Pegasus magic manipulation was interesting, relevant, and to me it added to the MLP mythos in a way that, as a fan, I loved, and as a reader, I found important to the story at hand. It made sense, and it didn't feel shoehorned in, and I found myself both intrigued and satisfied with the explanation here. And who doesn't like having some of the previously unforeseen mythos actually explained in a somewhat logical way? And I thought those were two very specific examples that I pulled out of the text that I went, that was really well done. And, you know, as someone who eventually aspires to write their own magnus opus, it's like, I want to do that. Like, I feel like that's an example of that's how you do it. You know, you don't belabor us with stupid things that don't really matter in the end. And if you do try to tack onto the mythos, you make it make sense and interesting to the text at hand.
Skywriter?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much on the same page. And I think that the close third person was intentional. You're looking you can look through this text quite a bit, and it just be very difficult to find real evidence of figurative language or any place where the narrator is trying to evoke anything. This seems to be a very close read on the thoughts and feelings and perceptions of a pony who is admittedly, and per the story, it has to be somewhat unimaginative, doesn't really engage in a super lot of introspection. And I think the prose style suits that well, because it is a very simple, very basic prose that doesn't lend itself to a lot of flights of fancy. And I would echo the earlier comment that the few times that you do get a little more flowery language, a little more metaphor used, is during the weather magic segments, which that's perfectly appropriate. I mean, I think that serves the narrative well. Early on, the phrase is used that weather magic in Rainbow's mind felt like quote unquote pieces clicking together or snapping apart, which I thought was it was a very interesting metaphor. I mean, it's very rare in this piece, but I think it's telling that it comes when she's talking about weather, which she is paying a lot of attention to, and she is thinking a lot about. So I think it serves it pretty well.
Okay, we'll move on to part 6. MP, this one is by you, and you clearly have a lot of feelings because you've written double question marks, which my inner grammar Nazi was like, no, I won't change it because that's how he wrote it. Secure a baby to a high chair, question mark, question mark. Are you crazy, question mark, question mark. MP?
We covered this a little bit in pre, but I just thought it was funny. There was the one scene where it's kitchen in the AppleDash house, and the baby is in the high chair, and then Applejack is trying to get everybody fed, and Rainbow Dash, to illustrate how incompetent she is at parenting, the baby keeps flying out of the high chair and up towards the ceiling, and then Rainbow Dash has to keep going to retrieve her. After 2 or 3 times of this, Rainbow Dash says, like, well, can't we just duct tape her to the chair or tie her down with rope or something? And this is, used to illustrate how everyone is just shocked. It's so incredulous that Rainbow Dash would dare to suggest such a thing. But like, actually, seatbelts and high chairs are completely like normal and not unusual at all. And it's just, I, as a parent, like every time I put my kid in a high chair, I would secure them with a seatbelt, and my kid can't even fly.
Yes, because I'm worried about them falling out of the bloody bottom of it. Yes, baby on the floor.
If Bookplayer isn't a parent herself, I felt like that was
She was at this point.
I don't know.
She had a 1-year-old at this point.
So it just seemed weird to me. It's a small thing, but I was just like, no, I had the same thoughts. Like, why don't you just buckle the seatbelt? Then she'll stop flying away.
I think if they'd phrased it as seatbelt, they might have had a better reaction. I'm fairly certain that she was talking about taping him to the chair, that it was like industrial style tape. And I interpreted that more as, you can't put tape on a leg, it will hurt.
Well, not tape, no, but like rope, yes.
I don't think she said rope. I'm pretty sure she said tape. And I just interpreted that as, you can't tape a baby to something. You can tie him to something. Like a seatbelt, that's good. You can't tape a baby to something.
That is a minor point. We already went over it in pre. We can move quickly on from that.
Yeah, but I wasn't here in pre. I was dealing with my non-functioning boiler. Niall?
Yeah, so just a few counterpoints to that, because this was something I wanted to talk about earlier, but I kind of dropped. So first off, I grew up a rural family. You passed down a high chair. Like, there were no straps. There was nothing on the high chairs that I grew up with and that my family still use. So Apple family, they don't have Pegasi. They probably didn't have straps on the chair. Also, to the point of like, so like, there is a lot of security stuff placed around like kid safety nowadays that we didn't have growing up. And some of it I totally get, right? Like, better car chair, better high chairs in your car, or seats for your car to have better child safety. Totally a thing. A child at a certain age needs to be in a car seat. Total thing. But it's like, I feel like this makes sense for the Apples because they're the farm people. And I don't know how many of you grew up in the sticks or outside of town, but like, you know, it's normal. It's normal that, you know, you just kind of let things ride and you're not that concerned about it. And also, like, a lot of times when things like that happen, at least in my background, it's like a little joy you make out of it. Like, there are days that it gets frustrating, but also like it usually turns into a game. I wouldn't have been surprised if like beforehand, every time he left, Dash made a game of like going to get him or playing hide and seek out of it. Like, I think that that's part of it too. And yeah, definitely the tape thing. Like, you can't tape a kid, or even tying a kid. You shouldn't tie a kid. Like, if they really wanted it done, install straps or install some kind of a harness. But yeah, I don't know. Those are my strong takes on this. But like, I totally don't see that it's being out of character, and I don't think it was just there to make Dash seem incompetent. I think it's also like, yeah, that's normal in some places, and that her reaction to it is the frustration, but a lot of people don't see it necessarily as a frustration all the time.
I just want to tag on to this. Just referencing the story, because I brought it up here. It first talks about duct taping kid to the chair. And then after that's shot down, as it probably should, I hope we can all agree that we shouldn't do that. Then Rainbow says, you know, what about rope? And then that's like, the mic drop there, like who does that? And well, I agree. Yeah, like securing her makes complete sense. This is a little personal anecdote, so, you know, settle up. I guess, and I don't remember this, but my mom loves to tell this story. Not because she's fond of it, but because it was a moment of abject horror for her. I was at toilet training age, however old that was. Maybe it was when I was 20, but I don't remember. And so she left me. She was working. She was a single mom at the time. She left me at a day home, and she was a social worker, and she had seen kind of both the worst and best of humanity in that job. And she didn't really trust anybody or anything. She really doesn't still, but she'd like to randomly come in and check on me. And in one of those random checks, she discovered that the operators of that particular day home had actually tied me to the toilet. And yeah, and I don't remember, but I mean, you know, when you get that kind of mental image of, you know, tying a kid down that's like, you know, that age, it's like that's not right. Now, I'm not saying that this is the same as that, or that people who you know, secure their children out of concern for their safety are somehow doing wrong by them. Not at all. But the idea of tying a kid to a chair, I could see why some people might look at that and go, that's not right, or we don't do that. But I also get what Neighrator's saying, like, why it's pretty normal to, you know, want to secure a kid so that they don't fall out and hurt themselves. So just thought I'd add that in there.
Jesus, are you okay?
Oh, I have so many problems.
Oh,
The casual, oh, I bet you have no idea.
Oh, that iceberg is deep, sir. It is deep, sir.
Illya?
Yeah, I have a different approach to it, I guess. Twice in my life, I was thrust into a marriage where I suddenly had children. The first time, the child was 1 year old. We got married 1 month the day after the child's first birthday. And you learn a lot in a very short amount of time. It is quite fascinating. You do sort of feel like Dash does, that you're going to destroy the child, and you quickly learn that it's probably not going to happen. We also didn't have any seats on the high chair, but we felt it was more important to teach the child to stay in the chair rather than to force the child to stay in the chair. So it was I think it was a difference in parenting style, and it probably holds over to a lot of things that we do in life nowadays, protecting children from things instead of letting them learn about things. We not only didn't have car seats, we didn't have seat belts. We didn't have anything. The kids just stood up in the seats and rode along, or laid up in that little portion where the back window is. We'd lay up in there sometimes. It was just a different way of parenting that people there, I think, are a little bit more Darwinian in those days, a little bit less concerned with minutia. I'm not saying it was better. I'm just saying it was different. Perhaps it's that way in equestrian as well.
I was going to say survivorship bias.
It's a valid thing, because we don't really know when it comes to the internal logic of this story, because this is something that just yesterday the thing came out about mobile phones in G5, but up until then G4's canon has always been quite anachronistic. So it's entirely possible that in the world of the show, safety belts on chairs, not a thing. Nobody even thinks about them, and they have this more Darwinian view of things, like Illya said. We don't know. We are kind of judging it from the human point of view of babies fall out of chairs. So, MP, have we thoroughly gone over your point?
Yeah, we should definitely
Suni,
move
go
on.
on!
I'm sorry. We should definitely move on. It was a minor point. We spent 20 minutes on it.
Sunny very, very clearly wants to say something. Go on, Sunny.
I've been trying to politely interject. They're like, oh, let's move on. It's like, no, wait! No.
Sorry.
You're okay, MP. I'm blaming Scribbler.
She's a terrible moderator to be.
Everybody knows I'm a terrible moderator. I say it enough.
Stop interrupting Sunny.
How dare you interrupt me on your podcast?
NP coup. MP is going to have a revolution to take over.
I just wanted to say I did grow up fairly poor and rural too. Yes, it's normal for people to not have safety measures that they really should, but that doesn't mean it's good. And it also doesn't mean that they're ignorant of the fact those things exist. It means they might not be able to afford them, or they might just have that survival of the fittest mentality where it's like, well, if the kid can't fucking figure it out, then, like, let's not try and pretend that every rural parent has the best parenting mindset when it comes to their children's safety. I would definitely say I get how there could be an alternate context where that was meant to read as funny, because it's not that wild of an idea that a high chair, especially for a thing that can fly, would have some mechanism to keep the thing from flying away so that it can't hurt itself. I wonder why Rainbow Dash's Wonderbolt salary wouldn't have afforded them a better upgraded high chair, or why one of their friends wouldn't have interjected. If you're going to have a Pegasus baby, you should probably have a means of keeping it from flying away, like a fucking child leash or something. They have a harness for holding the baby. If we're talking about growing up rural and poor, you hold that baby on your hip, you don't need no dang on harness. So it did strike me as a bit odd that they had a child harness for strapping in the baby, but not for the high chair.
Applejack is very proficient with lassos. I find it hard to believe there'd be no rope, no twine, anything nearby in the house. They're also very handy. Apple's very good with their handy. They're very hoovesy.
They're very hoofy.
They can raise a barn. They can't raise the high chair with some seatbelts on it.
How do you put a horse in a high chair anyway?
Painfully.
Carefully.
First, you break their legs and bend them backwards, and then
You make them be Lyra.
Yes. Right. We should probably move on.
Definitely.
It's another point of yours, though, MP. Applejack, you don't... Point number 7. Applejack, you don't have the memories of the pony I married, therefore I want a divorce. Is identity defined by the continuity of memory, and is Applejack out of character here? Discuss. Go on then, MP. Discuss.
I think we've probably gone over Applejack's. I think we've already gone over the character's characterization, if you will. So we probably don't need to touch on that again. But a lot of philosophers and writers define identity as the continuity of memory. Or if you want to be all Kingdom Hearts about it, you could say that our identity is a chain of memories.
Fuck off with that. I know you hate Kingdom Hearts.
I like Kingdom Hearts okay, but Chain of Memories in particular was particularly bad. Anyways, this idea I feel is kind of central to the plot of the story, but never really expounded upon as directly as it ought to be. But Applejack seems to think that Rainbow Dash is no longer the Rainbow Dash that she married, and so she promptly makes plan to have Rainbow Dash move out of the house before they've even figured out what's going on, or even before they figured out the situation is permanent. And it seems
You're
really
not my Rainbow Dash. Yeet.
So exactly. Hopefully you'd still have some warm feelings for this person that you married as they were 15 years ago, and you wouldn't immediately want a divorce. We've covered the characterization, so I'm more interested in the idea that identity is the continuity of memory. Anybody want to chime in on that?
Niall?
If you lose 15 years of your memory and you're starting back over from that point, you're not the same person. Like, at the core, you're still the same person, but you've lost 15 years of lessons that you've learned, 15 years of experiences. Your identity is different. You may be this person, but you are not the same person that you were 5 minutes before when you had all that experience and understanding. Like, on a biological level, you are still this entity, but you're not the same person anymore. It's very different. And I can say that, like, dealing with my grandfather who had dementia, is seeing that degradation and seeing the person that I was very close with and that I had a very, very good relationship with, essentially go to like an angry 5-year-old, really. Like, it got to the point where he couldn't take a shower or go to the bathroom by himself. And he would have fits where he would just kind of wake up and not remember who you were. And the worst time is if you're trying to help him use the bathroom and then a grown man looks over to you and is wondering why you're helping him use the bathroom and gets very angry, very violent. And yes, you are definitely your memories. And when you lose it, you are not the same as you were beforehand.
A context for everyone who's listening to this, or everyone in this chat as well, is to think back to who we were 15 years ago and think back to just trying to list off some of the experiences, just to ourselves, of the last 15 years that shaped us. And if suddenly think we don't have those experiences. Because, like, I was having this conversation with my dad just earlier, that just 10 years ago, how different our lives were. So going back 15 years, there's whole frames of reference of things that affected not just experiences, but personality-wise, changed my value set, my personality, my patience. Some of the stuff that's gone on, if that was suddenly removed, I would effectively be a whole different person. Like, I don't have that through line that Rainbow Dash does. 15 years ago, I was a shithead. I've said before now, I wouldn't have been friends with me. But when you take that away and think, okay, now become that person again, it can't be done. Which is one of the reasons I have problems with the ending.
I'm going to jump in here and say I don't disagree with anything that's been said. I would add that I think that we are also, while we are our memories, I think we're also more than our memories. I don't know if epigenetics explains it. I don't know if regular genetics explains it. But I feel that there's a common theme in other literature that, that you sometimes there are certain aspects of your personality or your history that you can't seem to escape. And I feel that even as we grow and we experience different things, certainly those things shape us. Certainly those things forge who we become. I do think, though, that there are elements of who we are that transcend a lot of that. And I'm not trying to say that, like, for instance, in a complete degradation like what happens in Alzheimer's, that that that's not that doesn't illustrate just how important our memories are. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that there can be core elements that transcend some of our experiences. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, although I completely agree that the continuity of memory is important to identity, I don't know that it is all consuming. It's maybe 98%. And maybe, some small percentage is also something that's latent that's there.
Skywriter?
I think the question here is less the continuity of the self and more a question simply of compatibility. I mean, you have to behave in a certain way to be in a relationship with somebody else. And it's not whether or not her identity is the same. It's whether or not she is, fit to cohabit in a meaningful romantic partnership with Applejack in a state that she was 15 years ago. Obviously, they started out a relationship 15 years ago. They were both in a certain place, and those were compatible mindsets, compatible behaviors, compatible points of view. Applejack's view is no longer compatible. Whether or not Rainbow's identity is the same is a little bit irrelevant to the question that AJ is dealing with.
Suni?
So I have a bit of personal experience with this in that I had a partner who went through not long-term memory loss, but she had an incident where she developed permanent vertigo. And she started suffering from just memory loss in general, where she would forget dates, where I was, things like that. So I have a little bit of real life experience with having a partner who very suddenly is not the same. And it kind of forces you to realize how much of a relationship is built on people being at least predictable, if not always consistent, to be able to understand what they're doing, or to know when they will or won't do something, or to at least guess when they might act in a certain way. And I think Applejack loses that. I will agree with NP that I think the divorce route was really rushed. Even when I was a teenager and I had a partner like that, it took me months to finally realize that I should probably, even if it felt shitty, leave her, because she just couldn't fulfill my needs the way I needed her to anymore. But I do definitely think that point was rushed. As much as I completely agree that memory is a core part of who you are as a person, and while there may be other factors that develop your personality and make up who you are that won't be changed by just losing your memory, at the end of the day, a lot of how you interact with other people is going to be formed by memory of various kinds. I definitely think that AJ acted hastily, and I don't think that makes her out of character. I think it was irrational. And I said that in the pre-discussion, that I think she was acting suddenly and irrationally as a result of bottling her emotions and trying to fix things in her own head too much, to the point of talking her into a solution that really wasn't much of a solution at all. But I do think that it was maybe a bit character breaking, in that you would think, living 15 years with the element of loyalty, Applejack would have a bit more loyalty to Rainbow Dash ingrained in her, and would be steadfast enough to say, okay, well, we'll get through this together, we'll figure it out, at least to give it some time, not just, a few days, a week at most.
Illya?
Well, in the first place, Applejack didn't tell him how to get out. I'm always seeing Rainbow Dash as a male. I always have.
I was going to ask about that.
I do that so much because he's just always seemed like a male, and I get in trouble with the pronouns on him.
My daughter does the same thing, by the way.
Applejack did not tell her that she had to get out. She said, you can stay if you want. But she was expressing her broken heart and the fact that he couldn't even want, couldn't even want to love Applejack. And so it wasn't quite as stern as I wanted to voice get out. It was more like, I think we should separate for a bit. And I think that's what I was feeling. On continuity of memory being identity, it's not binary. Psychologists will tell you now, probably wouldn't have told you this 100 years ago, that you have only a 10% influence on how your child grows up and what he grows up to be. 90% of it's genetics. You can make some very important nudges along the way, and you must, in order to guide the child into a productive adulthood, but it's mostly genetic. On the other hand, so much of it is defined by memory, not what sort of person you become, but who you are. And you can tell this by just asking anyone who has ever been horribly disfigured, and people treat them like they're someone else, and they just can't even treat them the same anymore. And the person inside is exactly the person they've always been. It's a terrible tragedy. One further illustration is that I did have amnesia once for 3 days. I was hit on the head. I had a concussion, and I didn't know anyone for 3 days.
Oh, really? Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I didn't care about them. I didn't know who they were. None of them meant anything to me. It was a pretty strange thing to be in. But I sort of can feel for Rainbow Dash in this. Not knowing anyone, not being able to make instant connections with people. It's tricky. And I think that's got me.
Anyone else want to add to that?
How do you follow that up?
Exactly.
I'm so glad I said my thing earlier.
I'm not sure I would have put this point in there if I'd known it was so personal to everyone. I'm sorry.
I didn't.
Oh, no, it's
great.
great.
I mean, it was to me, it was more of a, well, that's interesting sort of experience. I wasn't devastated by it because I didn't know him.
Huh.
So it's not a big deal. I got over it in 3 days.
Yeah, and also, this is what I enjoy about these conversations, is seeing other people's point of view. You know, it's like, just because I bring up the dementia, it's not like it's necessarily all pain for me. There was a lot of good in there too, but like, I love seeing other people's experiences because that's where you build your empathy from. You don't know what somebody else has gone through. You don't know what shoes they've walked in, and it's really nice to be able to have so many different talking points from different people and so many different experiences, and to be able to come together like this because you get a different perspective. It's really enjoyable, to be honest.
I like to tell people that, and it's not my phrase, it's been said by a lot of people, but people walk around with a 3-pound universe in their head, and it's your universe and yours alone, and you can't mix them. And another one that is mine is the windows of the soul are very small, and souls are not easily shared. So we do wonderfully well by not being any more at each other's throats than we are. I'm surprised by it every day.
Like, talk about your mic drops. You just got to have them all, don't you? Jeez. Ilya.
It's always hard to follow up, Illya.
It is. Also, don't actually drop. Just so anyone listening, don't ever actually fucking drop your mic.
Those are
Ever.
expensive.
Sorry about
Exactly.
that. Let me say something stupid. I like crackers real good. Sometimes I just stuff my mouth full of them.
Accent.
Chew.
Hey now.
Suddenly, AJ.
Those are my king you're talking about. Don't be making fun of us.
And suddenly AppleDash is the topic. So, moving on. The ship. Thoughts on the portrayal of AppleDash here. We have kind of talked about this already, but not specifically when we talked about their characterizations individually. Does anyone want to have a... Suddenly AppleDash is the topic in the AppleDash fic review. Yeah, you're right, Sonny.
What's gone wrong here? We're talking about AppleDash in the Applejack Fish podcast. AppleDash. AppleDash fic.
Suddenly fish.
I am up very late. I work nights. Do you people know that?
Sorry. Applejack fish. Suddenly that's what Applejack's called when he's a mermaid.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
I wanted to shoehorn in early before Ilya gets a chance to mic drop, so I'm gonna get in here. I thought the description of the relationship was well done and verbalized in an eloquent way that was immediately understandable, and it rang true. They challenge each other and they complement each other in ways that make sense. Their relationship feels real, and the one-sidedness near the beginning of the story feels real too. So much of this fic feels so authentic. They behave in ways that seem real and not just puppets to move the plot. The story's tight, the pace moves along, the characterization is good, and the drama arises as a result of the main tension, which comes about in a believable way. And I know that there's some specific examples, but those, there are a lot of people that ship AppleDash, and it's become canon since the story was written, and there's a reason for that. They just do work well together.
When they're written
yes.
to work well
yes,
together.
when they're written appropriately, absolutely.
Skywriter?
I was chiming in. I mean, it is a very fan fiction sort of thing to base a relationship on a rivalry, which is, we see that pretty much that's one of the primary fuels for shipping. I don't necessarily get that ship. I'm not sure that rivalry is necessarily a good basis for a long-term relationship. I think the author has done well in trying to explain that and justify how the two characters complement each other despite that. So I think that we're doing well. It's better supported than some instances of a purely rivalry-based romance that you see in fandoms, not just between these two characters, but between any two characters who are rivals with one another, frequently end up being kissy faced by the fans. But I think, like I said, I think it was good to not just presume that this is a natural thing that makes a good relationship, but to actually explore that a little bit more as to why, in particular, this relationship is good and supporting, despite the fact that it's based in a very fan fiction-y trope.
Suni?
That was something I actually didn't like about this fics portrayal of AppleDash, is I always felt in canon that their friendship ultimately came first before whatever competition they got into. That was one of their first real character establishing episodes way back in the early seasons, was the Fall Weather Friends episode where they get into a contest and it's friendly and it's playful and it's really cute how obviously into it they both are, and they both enjoy that competition and thrive on that and like that aspect of their friendship. And the point was that they got too into the competition and needed to pull back and remember that what really mattered was the goal they were trying to accomplish together, working as a team. And that's a lesson they've learned, and I know they're going to learn those same lessons across their life. Like, you don't just learn something once and then, well, I've got it down, I'm the expert at this now. But I've always loved that aspect of the relationship, is that yes, they're rivals, but they enjoy being rivals and they push each other and they know where the line is, and when they cross that line they know how to work back from it together. And I think this fic kind of lost that for me. For Rainbow Dash in particular, it felt like she was so, again, hyperfixated on Applejack's body that she completely forgot why they were compatible together. And it almost felt like they had to build up from more of a zero ground than canon already had them at. So I didn't particularly like that portrayal of the relationship here. I think it did ultimately touch on a lot of the points for why I like the ship in general. And they did get Rainbow Dash back to that characterization that I like. I just kind of wish they hadn't had to build up so much from such a lower point than canon for me.
Niall?
Yeah, I agree with Sunny a lot. And one of the things that I did like in this, that I felt like they did well, is so in a relationship, you usually have, whether people like to say it or not, there's the forerunner and there's support. Like, that's just how it happens a lot of the time. And I love that in the fic it brings up how AJ was essentially the rock for RD while RD was going through her Wonderbolts phase. Like, whenever she's going, AJ held things down, AJ took care of things, and then there comes the point in time where the relationship kind of adjusts, where RD has found that life fulfillment. She's gotten all of the things that she wanted. She feels fulfilled in that aspect of her life, and we've all had that in our life where you reach a goal and you really enjoy that, and then you realize, well, now what? And the whole aspect of her moving away from the Wonderbolts, coming back home, being a part of the family, which is clearly what AJ would want more. It's like, hey, I care about my family and the farm. I want you home more. I want you to be a part of it. And I felt like that characterization came through really well when it was talking. It was showing the memories, and it was talking about how things had adjusted. And I felt like that was done very well as far as the ship goes. Explaining how they had gotten to that point before she lost her memory. I just think it was really well done. And I enjoyed it all the way across the board.
Illya?
Probably going to parrot Neighrator here. I just don't care about AppleDash. That probably was portrayed rather well considering what they had to work with, but I can't go any further than
that. I do like AppleDash. I just can't think of anything to say that hasn't already been said.
Were you about to say Applejack fish again?
I'm up very late.
Oh, we appreciate you being here.
Love you.
Love you too. Right, okay. So if we finish with the ship, that actually took less time than I expected it to, considering it was the entire bloody point of the story. The inclusion of OCs. Do they, Leaf, Cider, and Sky, make or break this story? Does anyone have any opinions on the three children? Because they got a lot more, for want of a better word, screen time than anybody else aside from Applejack and Rainbow Dash herself.
I'll go first. I thought that I couldn't be arsed to remember the kids' names. They were just really just uninteresting to me, and just they all could be sort of interchangeable, in my opinion. And I understand why they had to be there from a narrative perspective, but I just didn't get that much out of them.
Niall?
I enjoyed them. I liked the arc with now. I will say, like Neighrator, it was hard for me to remember names, but I have problems remembering names just as is. But the eldest one, the male Earth Pony, forget Leaf. I liked his arc. I liked how he played off of both AJ and RD and would like push on them and help push the narrative forward. And I liked just the whole concept of, you know, him loving flight but never being able to do it, but still finding a way to be in there. I really enjoyed his character. And then the middle one, the klutz that's always messing up, I enjoyed it as well, because you expect her to be just like Dash, like, oh, I'm gonna be flying. She totally just wants to be in the farm. And I really like that idea, because I think a lot of the times I've seen this both with friends I have and with kids that I've interacted with, is like, you expect the kid to go the route of the parent, and a lot of the times they go exactly the opposite, or they tangentially go it, but not the way you expected. And I felt like both of their little mini arcs and their characterization was really well done. I thought it added a lot to the fic, to be honest.
I just wanted to add in there that I adore Leaf. The Earth Pony that loves flying and wants to choreograph is a good metaphor for RD's life at this point. Rainbow Dash, when she first observes Leaf, doesn't understand how an Earth Pony could understand flight enough to choreograph. Leaf is a conundrum to Rainbow Dash, like the life that she finds herself thrust in. But as she spends time with him, she sees his, for lack of a better word, I don't know, his nobility. She sees herself, and she understands what it is that she loved and probably grows again to love about him. Much like her new life, she sees herself in it. She understands what she loves about it. He and his relationship with Rainbow is kind of a version of the central tension. And so I like that mirroring that happens in that relationship. And it's sort of what we start, when she starts believing in him, that I, as the reader, started to see her as accepting and growing into her situation as a whole, not just in her relationship with Leaf. So I felt that relationship was very central to the story and important, and it was meaningful. Cider felt more like a plot device. I did like that we have the flyer is interested in flying. She wants to run the farm, and the non-flyer is interested in flying. And I thought that was a nice juxtaposition with each other, because something that seems to be a truism with kids is, you know, although they're a lot like their parents, they're never in the ways that you expect. And I thought that was a nice little nod to that concept. Sky, I don't think Sky needed to be in the fic. I didn't have a problem with Sky being there. I didn't feel that it was intrusive or anything. There wasn't much plot wise outside of illustrating Rainbow's difficulty with parenting, and that seemed to be really the only purpose in Sky being there.
I think from what Bookplayer's author's note said, Sky was originally meant to fulfill the same purpose that Cider then did. So I think that Sky is kind of a holdover from an earlier version of the story.
Yeah, and I think, speaking of the kids, there's a question that the book brings up, and that about kids that they never then answer, which sort of goes against my earlier comment about, oh, it's tight. You've got this whole idea of Chekhov's gun. Like, if you're going to mention it, you should do something with it. This is one time where it sticks out because they set something up and then they never really did anything with it. And that's like Rainbow Dash says, and when we figure out how two mares are going to have a foal in the first chapter, the question's brought up. Like, it's kind of there in the background, but if they never actually formed it out and said it out loud, I probably just would have went, it's some kind of magic thing. I don't know. But I'm wondering that too. And I'm wondering that.
Right there with you. How are these children conceived?
Like, how are these children
I just
conceived?
assumed it was donors. I really just assumed it was sperm donors.
Well, but
like a sperm bank. But then same as real life.
But then they make the comment about how, this kid is so much like RD, and it's clearly not the one she carried, right? And it just, so it feels like these kids.
You're getting into a nature versus nurture debate there.
Yeah, but regardless, they never touch on it, and so it makes it's not important. I want to make that clear. Like, I mean, you could just say magic, whatever, but it's because the question was brought up and beforehand that made me go, so why didn't you answer that? Or did you just never think of a good explanation? And that was one little thing about the kids that bugged me.
Rule 63, horsecock
Maybe
spells. I mean, RD was the guy twice, and then it was like AJ wanted to be the guy. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, that seems as good an explanation as any. Yeah. It's a world where magic exists. Probably there can be some magical horse penis.
At the end of the day, maybe it just doesn't matter. They just assume, they were conceived however these things are usually done, or it just doesn't figure into it much. The important thing is that this is their family now, and so I guess the sperm donor or whoever the male contributor to this equation was just doesn't matter. What was that other fic we read where the fathers are just not even mentioned?
Que sera, what you chose.
That's right.
Except in this case, I genuinely thought at some point RD was going to ask, "Did I sleep with a guy?"
I wouldn't have minded at all if they didn't set it up that way in the first chapter. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Suni?
This is a good time for the resident lesbian to remind everyone that we are developing technology where an egg can be used to fertilize another egg. And
really?
That is a thing that can happen. In fact, I think there have already been children born who were created like that. So it is.
I was not aware of this.
It is entirely possible.
Fucking new news to me. Wow.
I don't know that they've gotten that far with it, but absolutely they're talking about redifferentiating germ cells so that they can be sperm.
Well, this is older technology too. Mind. I mean, I knew about this back in high school. So this is not a recent development where, it is definitely within the future going to be totally possible for two AFAB people to impregnate each other. And I don't find it hard to believe at all that in a magical world of Equestria, that would be totally feasible already via magic. So I've never really been bothered by the idea of same gender couples having biological kids in the magic horse world.
Idea.
So
no, in the magic horse world, it's never really been a thing. Like, literally one of the very first fic readings I ever listened to back in 2012, I did not look at the tags or anything beforehand, and before I knew it, Lyra had a magical penis, and they had a kid, and had a kid with Bon Bon. That was literally the very first thing I ever listened to. Thereafter, I've just assumed magical penis.
What?
But I am legit impressed and a bit flabbergasted that science has come to the point where egg on egg can make a child, even in theory.
Yeah, I just want to add in, I want to make it clear that it's not that that there is a problem with that. It's just, from my perspective, just that they set up the question because clearly RD is unaware of anything like that being able to be possible in the first chapter. And, like I said, magic obviously could have made it happen. Maybe at this point, Equestria doesn't seem really science-based for the most part. Not that there is no science, but up until recently, they didn't have cell phones or anything like that. So, yeah, I mean, and again, it means nothing to the story. I want to make that clear too. Like the only reason why I bring it up is because they brought it up.
Yep.
As a question. And
it's the Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, it's the whole Chekhov's gun.
Chekhov's horse cock.
Yeah, it's like they brought it up.
Unlike Chekhov's gun, the horse cock might actually have been fired.
Yeah, maybe.
It's like if you bring it up, answer
like
it. Whether it's magic, whether it's whatever. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Planting and payoff. You can't have the planting without the payoff, and I've just realised that this is not.
There's planting going on.
There was some seeding going on there, but we don't know whence or whom.
Well, they
or
are
how.
farmers.
True. Oh, should we just assume they grew in a field?
You could,
Yeah.
or maybe mud horses. They just take a bit of
Fuck
mane,
off!
throw it into
Hey!
a bunch of mud, and they come back 6 months later, and there's a horse.
You, sir, I resemble that remark, sir.
What? I am a mud horse.
Actually, yes. There's 4 mud horses
Hey,
in this.
mud
Jack,
horses
are we
are
not?
best horses. Fight me.
Yay! What do you mean fight you? I am a mud horse.
That's our word?
Exactly.
I'm so sorry. This is actually, we need to move on from this.
we do, because we've been recording for like nearly 3 hours already. Okay. Anybody else have any opinions on Leaf, Cider, and Sky?
Yes.
Go on, Sunny.
First of all, Cider Splash, adorable fucking name. Like, can we just appreciate the fact that Cider Splash is like the perfect AppleDash kid name?
Preach.
I loved that shit.
Preach.
I am such a sucker for next gen. Like, I actually have massive baby fever and love seeing how people come up with what each pairing would do as far as children go, if they even have them. Cider Splash.
There's a reason why Lepodity is so popular.
Cider Splash. Excellent fucking name.
It is.
Leaf was a good character, broke the ending for me. Completely broke it.
Suddenly the ending just became about his arc, not Rainbow's.
Yep. Yeah, it was. I had the same issue with something I reviewed a while ago. Oh, something the sun, to relinquish the sun, I think it was.
Yeah.
Where we had that
the one Illya chose.
Yeah, we had that one random chapter about this side character, and then suddenly he was the main protagonist, and it was all about him. Yeah, I felt that with Leaf, where it's like, okay, well, Rainbow Dash is fine. She's just had her brain reverted to being 15 years younger, and oh, that's great, because accept the good things in life now. Anyway, Leaf gets his cutie mark, and then end. And it's like, I feel like it would have been better if that had been a midpoint in the story, if maybe finding out the big twist that Rainbow Dash didn't, quote, quote, didn't time travel, was placed at a point where they could then adjust to that reality and Rainbow Dash could come to terms with it and more slowly get to that point of realizing that she can still have a happy present, because I don't feel like that had time to breathe. But if you weren't going to do that, if you did want to end it at Rainbow Dash finding out that she didn't time travel, you can't have Leaf get his cutie mark. You can't. You need that to be earlier in the story, or you just need to nix it and leave it heavily implied that he does eventually get over that, because it did become about fulfilling Leaf's story more than Rainbow Dash, and I hated that.
I think Skyrator said that he needs to go.
It's a good a time, isn't it?
I think this is probably. I think the discussion of the ending might get a bit divisive. It sounds like. It seems like I haven't allocated quite enough time for this entire fic. So it is my first time. But anyway, I think I need to.
It's fine.
I do need to start heading out here. But thank you so much. I am honored and pleased to have been given the opportunity to discuss this with you people. It's been great. I haven't talked live Pony fic to anyone in well over a year, so this has been a very wonderful experience. Thank you so much.
Woohoo! We didn't scare you off. Huzzah!
It was lovely having you.
Well, We'll
Very
see
much
if
so.
he comes back. We'll just see.
All right.
Bye, Skywriter.
Thank you
Bye,
all so much.
Skywriter. Lovely to have you.
Lovely to be here.
Bye.
Yep. Have a good one.
We'll try not to make it 60,000 words next time, so hopefully it's at least
Yeah!
3 hours, not 4.
And he was never seen again.
To the dungeon!
He trotted away happily into the sunset.
Who the fuck starts a
Then faster
journey at
and
sunset?
faster.
I've always hated that.
I have a comment just on what Sunny said, unless Sunny wanted to keep going.
No, you're good.
Okay. I hear what you're saying, and I understand how it does seem to make turn the fic to be mostly about Leaf at that point. I guess because I really saw the relationship with Leaf as being a metaphor for where RD was at, I really thought that was their way of heading off into the sunset in a fashion, in the way that, you know, she's been struggling to accept this role, but here she is being the awesome mom she can be, right? Like this is 100% mom Rainbow Dash at this moment, setting that moment up, knowing and believing in him. So while it is Leaf's moment, it's in a way it's Dash's victory. So I saw it more, you know, from a parent perspective, like if you can get your kid to realize their purpose, and if you can get them to push that, like as a parent, from that perspective, there's really not much any better feeling than when you get your kid closer to, you know, their dreams. It's kind of the pinnacle. At least maybe other parents don't feel that way, but I certainly do. And
It really brings Dash into the family, is what it does.
Yeah, and I didn't have a problem with that. If anything, I felt that it helped that transition from feeling sad about the ending to actually being, you know, like, no, like she's gonna make it. Like this is gonna work, and it made the ending feel more complete to me. Like I left not just having applied that they're gonna be okay, but they're gonna be okay. This is a happy ending.
I will talk about the ending in a second, but
Where's Scribbler?
well, actually, I was just going to give my opinion on the OCs since this was my point I hadn't said. I actually really liked the OCs, and I have a high bar for how tolerant I can be of OCs, because I've said this multiple times before. I've been reading fanfiction for a very long time. I wet my teeth. No, I wet my whistle and I cut my teeth in early fandom in the early 2000s. Yeah, metaphorically speaking. Yeah, anyway, I started reading fanfiction back when Mary Sues were just the norm and everybody had one, and I had one, and I found her in a notebook the other day that my parents dropped off at my house. If you are well behaved when you come to visit, MP, you can look at the cringe that is my very first fanfiction. Oh my god, don't get your hopes up. I read some of it and I'm like, holy shit, I was a cringy 17-year-old. But therefore, I have read a lot of OCs in a lot of fandoms, so I have very little tolerance for them. That said, when they first popped up in the story, I was like, oh boy, here we go. And I found it really, really hard to visualize them and to care who they were and what their names were, because it felt like an info dump of, this is Lee, this is Simon, this is Sky, this is what they look like, this is what they sound like. It's like, oh, fuck off, I don't care. Just tell me about Rainbow Dash and Applejack. But as the story progressed, and especially when Rainbow Dash was left alone to look after them for the day, they kind of crystallized a bit for me and became characters that I appreciated and wanted to follow, because they had very distinct voices. And I found that if you can write something well enough, I'm on board with you 100% all the way. If you're passionate and you've applied skill to a situation, yep, fine, I'm with you on that. If you haven't, I'm like, fuck, there's too much fuck in the world for me to stick with this one. And they didn't make or break the fic for me, but they certainly made it more interesting, because I wasn't expecting to like the OCs in an AppleDash fic. I was there for the AppleDash, not for the OCs, and they ended up becoming quite important. Where the fuck is Scootaloo?
In Kennerlot.
Who cares?
Like, I really would have thought, considering that Bookplayer was very attached to canon and making all these references to canon, that you would have acknowledged that Rainbow Dash has effectively brain damage, but at the very least, throughout the story, they thought she was displaced in time. It's established all the main 6 know this, including Apple Bloom, and Scootaloo never comes to check on her? Ever? Not even in a sideline of, in the epilogue of, and I spoke to Scootaloo the other day, she's weirded out by this, but she's okay with it.
She died somewhere in a terrible accident trying to imitate Rainbow's moves.
See, that's the thing, I would have actually preferred it if Scootaloo had been killed off earlier in the preceding 15 years, rather than just not acknowledged.
Nobody wanted
Sonny?
to tell.
Go on, Niall. Snile, go on.
Oh, sorry, that was my only feedback. Nobody wanted to tell her Scootaloo was dead. She was already having so many problems.
Scootaloo, it was a. I'm so sorry.
No, it's not that. It's like I keep introducing Sunny and then losing control of my own podcast again because I'm so shit at this.
Go first, please proceed, Sunny.
No, of the 4 fucking hours we've been talking, I guarantee at least an hour of them is me. I can wait. NP, go first.
Scootaloo, see what happened was Rainbow Dash just got super famous and just like had less and less time for Scootaloo. And so, Rainbow Dash won the big race and she was super happy and Scootaloo rushed onto the field to give her a big hug and Rainbow Dash was so busy signing autographs. She like shoved an autograph in Scootaloo's hand and Scootaloo just looks up with her with big eyes and just says, Rainbow Dash. And then the rain falls on her and she walks slowly back to her cardboard box. And you never hear from her again.
Not the cardboard box.
No, not Orphan Lou.
10 out of 10, best story. Congratulations.
You will receive your medal in the mail.
Sonny, I need clarification. What do you mean, cat get out of the chemicals cabinet? You just typed into chat.
So, my beloved, terrible gremlin of a fucking son, Nuka, has figured out that if he slams every cabinet door in the house, I will eventually feed him. But we stopped doing that because the little fucker started throwing up. Y'all remember that? We had a lot of not fun times about it, but he's been doing better because we have it on a very strict feeding schedule with a particular formula of food, and that seems to be helping. But he still thinks that if he bangs the cabinet doors enough, eventually mommy will feed him. And maybe if he does it so often that it pisses me off and I keep having to get up to get him out of the goddamn cabinets, I'll get so annoyed that I'll say, fuck it, just this once you can have extra food before the actual time. But no, that's not how it works. I'd like him to not die. Bless you. So, every now and then, even if it doesn't actually work anymore, he will walk over to any random cabinet, usually the cabinet we keep all the dangerous chemicals in that I need to get a lock on, and just slam it, open it with his paw, and then slam it, and do that over and over and over again until I get up and chase him off, and then I sit back down, and then he goes back and he does it again.
So he's a child.
Yeah. Having cats is just having permanent toddlers.
Yeah, I know that.
See, that's how I feel about dogs. I feel like cats are like permanently having a 45-year-old woman that doesn't give a fuck.
And maybe that too. Some of my fucking customers would prove that level of entitlement.
That's because you live in Karen Central.
Yeah, no, we shan't be saying that in a public sphere. Anyway, story.
Anyway,
the
Applejack story. Applejack. Fuck.
Applejack.
Mine is closer than Applejack fish.
Anyway, before we crest the 5-hour mark, I would have liked, I don't think I ever got to say, but okay. Cygnus always had this saying of fics need to either be 10,000 words longer or 10,000 words shorter. This one needed to be longer. I think I would have preferred if the ending had more time to breathe.
Yes.
I don't think that Leaf getting his cutie mark was necessarily bad. I just think it was poorly placed and poorly paced.
Yes.
I would have loved an addition of Scootaloo and Rainbow Dash having grown apart. And Rainbow Dash having in her first venture into raising a child, sort of babysitting at least, and being an important figure to her. I would have loved if Rainbow Dash had fucked up and her and Scootaloo weren't close anymore because Scootaloo eventually grew away from her or just stopped idolizing her, and they realized that was the basis of their relationship, and Rainbow Dash never succeeded in getting closer than that, and they had established that Leaf and Dash were so close because Leaf idolized her. And I think I would have liked if Scootaloo had made more of an appearance, not because obligation, because Scootaloo and Rainbow Dash are close and will be close forever, but because it would have been a great opportunity to show that past Rainbow Dash, that this current Rainbow Dash doesn't remember, isn't perfect. And she did fuck up.
And maybe why she left the Wonderbolt. Like, I fucked it up, so I need to dedicate myself to being a parent right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot you could have done with Scootaloo that wouldn't necessarily need to be her even being worried about Rainbow Dash. You could just take time to explain why she wasn't there. But it did definitely feel weird to not have her show up at all. And maybe that would have fucked with some of the timey-wimey bullshit or not. I don't know. I haven't thought about the time shit too hard because I just never really care about that plot element too much when it comes to fix where it seems like the ending is going to have an obvious answer, even if it wound up not having that in this one.
Nope.
Nope, it did not. But yeah, I think Scootaloo was a missed opportunity, just maybe for different reasons than other people might say.
That would have been a great twist. Rainbow Dash reconciles with Scootaloo to show that, the pony that Applejack had fallen in love with was not perfect, and that there was room for improvement. And that would have been a fantastic twist.
Actually, yeah, I want to chime in and say I really like your take on that, Suni, in that it gives because there's this death of perfect Rainbow Dash, right? And then we're given imperfect Rainbow Dash, and I like the idea that no, she wasn't perfect along the way, and that would give an opportunity to not only illustrate that, but yeah, just add so much more depth to the situation. So kudos, there's the rewrite right there.
Agreed. I also really like the idea of letting it breathe a little bit more, because I do agree that it kind of ended a little abruptly. I still agree with Clever of like I like that Leaf coming in at the end like shows she's the bomb, but like yeah, it did seem a little abrupt, and I would have loved to have had just a little bit more and to have had Scootaloo in there.
And just to keep going, to add on, as long as the writing stayed as tight as it was, I could have read another 60,000 words. I really like this fic that much.
Well, we kind of, he's in the cabinet again, Suni says. Well, we've kind of segued naturally onto the next point of the ending, full stop, the ending, by NP. So, NP, since you made this point, do you want to elaborate your thoughts on the ending?
It was just way too rushed. They discovered that Rainbow Dash was not in an open loop, not in a closed loop. She just had traumatic brain injury and has lost 15 years of her life and was never going to get them back. The best, everything that defined her as a person, everything she was looking forward to, everything she aspired to. Not only it's like worse than never getting it. Like she's already done it and gone past it. It's awful, and like everyone is really happy about this. Instead, they're more focused on the fact that it turns out Rainbow Dash didn't lie to Applejack, and so now everyone is happy. Like Rainbow Dash is going to need a lot of therapy to get past this, and I just thought that was not touched on nearly as much as it needed to be. So the ending I thought would just needed way more work.
Clever?
I guess, and I thought one of the triumphs of the ending was how much it made me play with my feelings, and in such a short period of time. So I didn't see it coming, which I really appreciate any story where I don't automatically assume the ending. I want from wanting her to go back in time to not wanting her to go back in time and feeling sad about that, to actually feeling grateful that this whole unfortunate memory loss happened to her, as apparently the alternative was going to be that she'd be either brain dead or dead. And I thought what was a theme that was central to growing up is in learning to be happy with events as they unfold. How we choose to view a set of circumstances can drastically change our reaction to it. And I thought that the ending was masterfully woven in such a way to drive that point home, that sometimes shit happens and it's not necessarily great, but what we do with it can really change our outlook on it. And that's not trying to be toxic positivity, because there are people that are like, oh, your life's shit. Well, look at the bright things. I'm not trying to suggest that at all, but simply that there is truth in how you frame things can certainly define your reality. And within the framing of that, isn't it actually great that she got rebooted 15 years ago rather than being brain dead, is a very fascinating way to look at it. And I didn't think there'd be a way to save a happy ending without her going back and restoring everything to like status quo. But they found that. And I thought that was actually really well done.
That seemed really contrived to me. Just like, yes, you've lost 15 years of your life and you'll never get it back. But because you're so special, you're not brain dead. So yeah, I think that was maybe the only way the author could have framed that, put a positive spin on that, and I didn't buy it.
Illya, what do you think?
I'm going to withhold my comment on this until number 12, which I'll use that to cover it.
Okay. Niall, what do you reckon?
Yeah, so I kind of follow along with the logic of Clever. I really liked it. And it wasn't even that she was special. It's and that's the part I enjoyed. It's, hey, you were such a dumb fuck that you did this all these years ago. And the unintended effect is you didn't die. Instead, you get a second chance. It may not be the second chance you want, but you can look at it as it's half empty or half full. Would you rather be dead and everybody be mourning you dead? Or do you take what is a second chance at life and continue joy getting to know your current reality and know these kids that you have and rediscovering the love that you had with your significant other? Like, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. That doesn't mean it's not going to be messy. That doesn't mean that she's not going to need therapy, or that there are going to be plenty of days of confusion and frustration and anger and sadness and depression. But like, I feel like the reason it works for me is by this time that they get to this point where they're asking, she and AJ and the family have at least come to a point where she's realized that she's not sure if she wants to go back. And that means that she's open to a possibility of wanting to stay there. And I feel like once she realizes that, oh, going back isn't really an option, nor was it ever an option in the beginning, because, you know, this wasn't time travel. This was, you literally left a brain imprint of yourself on the storm whenever you hit it originally. And then when you ran into it again, it didn't kill you. It just rebooted you. I kind of liked it. And I like the craziness of, hey, it's Everfree magic, so it's unpredictable. I still love the idea of, no matter how much you plan or how much you think you understand, there's those factors that you'll never understand. There are always going to be those mysteries that we never get. And there are always phenomena in life that come along. And so I really liked it. It was enjoyable for me. But I completely understand why other people might not have enjoyed the route they went with it.
Suni, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Obviously, I fucking hated the ending. I hated it. Loathed it entirely. Ruined the fic for me. Right. In fact,
me too.
The fic is still perfectly fine, and I understand why it was executed the way it was. I think every bit of it was intentional. I don't think it was any level of incompetence on the author's part. I just really hate the direction that it went in. If anything, speaking technically, I think it needed room to breathe, but I've covered that. It was definitely rushed feeling. I know the author wrote this in a really short span of time, and I think this is where it shows, because it really could have used some extra TLC to make sure that it was given as much attention as the rest of the character establishment throughout the fic was, because it was really solid up to this point. It didn't have me at first, and I didn't like the characterization, but then it pulled me in, and I really liked Rainbow's interactions with Leaf, and it got me to care about the OCs, and the AppleDash was good, and even when characters acted stupid, it was believable why they were acting stupid. I can understand that. But that ending, though, I'm not sure that the twist was worth it. And I don't think that Leaf's cutie mark works as a fulfillment of Rainbow Dash's character needs. It also feels like she got rewarded for being a huge how do I say this
Douchebag.
non-controversially
Idiot.
I don't think anything that would have happened
Selfish.
between them on their first date, had it happened, and it did, could have been necessarily consensual, because it would have happened under false pretenses. And that just, oof, I don't like the idea of Rainbow being rewarded for that.
Yep.
I actually fucking didn't even remember that they did actually sleep together on that first date, so. I mean, at least Rainbow was like, you know, I'm gonna do stupid things and you gotta accept that, and Applejack was the one who initiated, but I'm really not cool with the fact that Rainbow, perhaps unintentionally, tried to force Applejack into things quicker than she would have liked after she expressly said, hey, I don't want things to be rushed. Not cool with that.
Same. I kept waiting for that to come up. I've already said a lot of my opinions on this, but yeah, I really, really liked this fic right up until halfway through the last chapter. When the plot twist happened, that spoiled the whole thing for me. And I was so disappointed because I said before that I've done a reading of The Homesteading, which was another fic by Bookplayer, but it was a Twyjack. It was actually the Twyjack that got me into that pairing. Bookplayer's characterization of Twilight and Applejack in that helped to crystallize my love of Twyjack. But I think that's a much better story, that it's set in the future, it goes through what makes this particular pairing work, it has a mystery, and it has a twist ending. And I think that one did it much better than Lost Time. Because Bookplayer is an incredibly good author. She's one of my favourite authors. But this story's twist, I felt that I was too disappointed by the twist and the abrupt denouement of the whole story, and the fact that the final bit wasn't about Rainbow Dash, it was about Leaf. None of the problems that had been thrown up by the rest of the story were really addressed in the ending. Rainbow Dash still doesn't remember being a Wonderbolt, and is never going to have those experiences the way that she always dreamed of. Rainbow Dash doesn't remember getting married, doesn't remember their first date, and she seems way too okay with this. Things that had previously bothered her suddenly no longer do. And I feel like the revelation that this was magical brain damage should have thrown a different light on those feelings and those issues, but not cancelled them out completely. Like, I never got to be a Wonderbolt. I don't have any memories of being famous or enjoying flying, which is the thing I enjoy most of all in the world. Even when I was this other version of me, I loved flying. I don't have any memories of that, but I'm magically okay with it, because otherwise I'd be dead. I feel like it would have it would have tempered her emotions, but not negated them. And I don't like that Bookplayer went in that direction with it. And it's purely subjective for me. But I just felt so crushingly disappointed by how that plot point was handled that it did retroactively spoil a lot of the story for me. And I hate that happened. I really do.
This is part of why I said that I think it needed the tragedy tag, is because I do think this is a tragedy. Even if it has the hopeful ending and the intended takeaway is you make the best of what you've got instead of waiting for everything to be perfect, I think that works for a much smaller scale story. And I know you just have to get through hardships in life, and sometimes you have to adjust to really shitty things, but Rainbow Dash died. Like, let's not mince words.
Effectively, yeah.
Even if a copy of her brain was put back in her body so that some semblance of her can puppet her way through this life she didn't live, Rainbow Dash, as everyone else knew her, is dead. That Rainbow Dash is never coming back. She died. And there's no chance.
And there's no mourning period.
Yeah, there's no mourning. There's no acknowledgement of, okay, Rainbow Dash, the person, the body that can think and interact with you is alive. But Rainbow Dash, who she was, who we all have known and watched grow over the past few years, that Rainbow Dash is never coming back. It's not like she's going to magically grow into that person again, or she's going to travel back in time and eventually be that Rainbow Dash, which she was kind of thinking. Like, that Rainbow Dash is gone forever. And no amount of this Rainbow Dash making do is going to change that. So I thought it was a really tragic ending and really depressing. And yeah, that's life. And I understand the message, but it's not the ending I wanted. And I don't appreciate what it was.
It's not what you want out of an AppleDash romance.
Yeah.
No. Because it felt like Rainbow didn't really get a choice in it all. It felt like she was... all of her qualms and all of her autonomy and her agency was just crossed out by the fact of, oh shit, I nearly died. I guess I better just accept the life that is here, that the other version of me had built, and have no say of my own whether or not this version of this life is the one I want. And it felt like suddenly her wants, needs, and worries no longer mattered. And I really don't like the theme of, yeah, well, you nearly died, so whatever you get, whatever life is given to you, whatever scraps of fate are thrown at you, you need to just be grateful for them and feel no other emotion for that. Niall?
I get what all of you are saying, but I also thought that there were some mitigating factors in there. Like, didn't it mention towards the end that she was getting some of the memories? Like, she would get flashes here and there? So
No, I don't remember that.
I'd have to go back and look, but I believe that there's one section in that last chapter where it talks about, like, every now and then she would get a little bit of something from beforehand. But also it's like, yeah, all of her concerns don't necessarily go away, but now it's not just like this is your life, this is how you have to do it. I mean, she has new decisions she can make. Yeah, are there certain constraints to it? Like, yeah, you can't not have a kid. You had a kid. But how you have that relationship with that family, how you have your new goals and dreams and whatnot. Like, I do get the whole tragedy side, and yeah, you're right, Sonny. That version of Rainbow Dash is dead. Like, she ain't coming back. And I think that is something that, especially if they had it breathe, it would be great, in my opinion, to have had all the girls get together as well at the end and kind of had a talk about it. Like, I would have loved to have seen, like, her and AJ with Twy sitting down with the other three girls and, like, having a discussion about the reality of it and how that affects them. And, you know, maybe like them sharing a little bit, but also like asking her, you know, what do you want out of this? How can we support you? But I don't know. I guess it just doesn't bother me quite as much, but I see more hope in it. But I totally get your stance on it too. Yeah, Rainbow's dead. She's not coming back, and that is tragic. I guess with that, I would agree that the tragedy tag would have worked on this as well.
I'll pile on that and go, yeah, I see that, and I agree with that about the tragedy tag, and that, yeah, absolutely, who she was is dead. I would go on to say that I don't think that all of her agency is erased. I would say, though, that that there was an opportunity to potentially explore a very complex issue. I'm definitely not intelligent enough to figure out how that would work with the pacing and the story that they wanted to tell, and perhaps the sheer magnitude of the loss and mourning maybe wasn't given its full breath. Like, I absolutely can agree to that. But I guess, you know, yeah, I'm still in the, I don't think that ruined it for me. I think in part because instead of having everything work out positively, which was sort of what I was kind of rooting for initially, when I didn't get that, but I got this sort of makeshift workaround, I felt that was a brave choice on behalf of the author in a way, because I get too frustrated with fictions where everything just works out perfectly, because I feel like that's a fairy tale. And maybe we read our fiction as escapism, and we're confronted with too much real life that we don't need it in our spare time when we consume these things. But I still stand by that, dealing with that subject matter and trying to roll with it, that presented a different option that isn't, as in my experience, as explored, without going like full tragedy, because I felt like this wasn't like, yes, it was tragic, Rainbow Dash dies, but I didn't feel it went full tragedy, if that makes any sense.
You're thinking about it now, you kind of inadvertently brought up this point. This is about Twilight. Do we actually feel that she would be that opposed to, if it were an open loop, sending Rainbow back anyway? Because I don't need the ending to be perfect. I'm perfectly fine with it being bittersweet or more somber. I just don't necessarily like this particular ending for its execution, and I don't know, the fact that it feels like it was kind of gimmicky, and very tragic without addressing the tragedy. But I'm not sure I actually buy that Twilight would be so staunchly opposed to sending Rainbow Dash back in an open loop, because, as she mentions, her loops with Starlight Glimmer were all open loops, and she still went through with sending herself back over and over again, chasing her preferred future, even in futures where things weren't as obviously terrible to everyone else. I mean, they were.
The Nightmare Moon one.
The one with Flim and Flam, where Applejack's orchard got taken over. She went back with that one because that was just obviously wrong, even if it realistically probably only really affected Applejack. So I'm not sure that I buy that Twilight would be that horrifically opposed to an open loop reversion.
I kept coming back to the multiverse theory, the idea that Twilight knew each time she kept going back, she was just creating a different universe. And those universes still existed. They were alternate timelines, but they weren't erased. And yet she wasn't willing to let Rainbow have a crack at a life that she actually chose.
I did think it was clever that the potion that Sakura used was conflated with confirming that the timeline was a closed loop, because that's not necessarily what the potion did. It just confirmed that someone was in the right timeline. So I did think the twist itself was clever, and I should give credit for that. But yeah, part of why the twist didn't really work for me is because it felt like magical amnesia had been thrown away almost as a joke. Like, magical amnesia is the kind of cliche that obviously the author isn't going to do, but then that is what happened. Like, I felt like it was kind of a wink and a nod, but then the wink was like, hey, this is what actually happens. It's like, okay, that's fine. You
like when in Equestria Girls they said, ha ha ha, they're just going to do a battle of the bands now. Oh shit, they are.
Yeah. Yeah. So part of why the ending doesn't work for me too is, I don't know if I ever touched on my characterization of the other ones. I thought they were fine for being in character, but I never really bought the time travel logic. Maybe because I'm kind of a time travel nerd, so that's part of why I don't really care about it in stories where I can kind of tell that things will work out a particular way. I couldn't with this one. It did catch me by surprise that the answer was magical amnesia, but more because I thought that was a joke, not an actual option.
It had, for me, a very Game of Thrones-y subverting the narrative for the sake of subverting the narrative, rather than this is totally driven by events. Niall?
I actually have a question. Like, I didn't read it as the amnesia was the thing. Like, I thought the first three options was like, yeah, you could have magical amnesia or it's an open or closed loop. But I thought, and this may just be my interpretation, I might have to go back and look at it, but it's not that she has amnesia. It's literally, hey, you had like an imprint of yourself there. It's not that you have amnesia. It's literally you were overwritten. I didn't read it as it was any one of those three. It was like a variation on it. It's like, hey, you're essentially your physical husk was when the storm hit you in your later years. It essentially killed you, and the only thing that kept you alive is that because the storm hit you when you were earlier, and because Everfree magic is wild and weird, it put that imprint back into this physical form, and that's where, like, yeah, she's essentially dead. That was my take on it. So I don't know. I almost don't feel like it was amnesia per se. It's a question of, you know, kind of what we were talking about. What is self? You know, are you the collection of your memories? I don't know. And I guess that's why I feel like it works better as well. I didn't feel like I got hung up on the amnesia thing. There is no amnesia. She's dead and essentially been rebooted from this point.
It was explained that the way amnesia works is you get brain damage and then your brain repairs itself, but when you get amnesia, you have lost. Man, I don't remember the exact fucking explanation for it, but it was something to the effect of you've lost the part of your brain that stores your memories and it doesn't repair correctly. So it was magical amnesia in a sense, in that she was so severely brain damaged that she lost all of her memories, but she also lost her brain function entirely. So it's like she got super magic amnesia. She was so amnesic, she died entirely. And then her brain was rewritten by the magic. The storm helped her to repair her brain with a former copy of itself. So it is a form of amnesia. It's just aided by the magic of the Zap Apple Storm.
Okay.
That's part of why
6 of one, half dozen of
Okay.
the other. It's magic. It's amnesia.
Yeah. So it's, you know, it is magical amnesia. The whys and hows of it just aren't as immediately obvious as the terms would imply. Fuck me writing. What was I gonna say? I had a point. It was there and I forgot it. God damn it.
While you're thinking of that, I'm just going to jump in and say that the it's magical amnesia thing didn't bug me because they had of what I thought was a fairly well thought out explanation that didn't feel ad hoc, especially when they went to the trouble of establishing weather magic, wild magic, and whatnot. So it didn't feel like that. That it, like, and as we've already, you know, it's already been said, like, this didn't come out of nowhere. This was clearly planned. It wasn't like just a last minute fix. They had decided this is what was the plan the whole time. And I think that's why I didn't cringe at that as what was going on. And I just didn't see it coming. And I appreciated that, but I get the criticism and understand too, the needing for it to breathe and to examine some of that loss. I guess I just felt that as a whole, with its length as what it was and where they wanted to take it, it didn't bother me in the same way. But again, I think it depends who you are, what you're going to take and how things are going to strike you in this fic. And that's one of the wonderful things about getting together, because I had not thought about Rainbow's agency until Scribbler brought it up.
Yay! I contributed.
Yeah, I think I would have definitely been more favorable to the ending if it didn't feel like it was like, look at this twist. Okay, it's over. You know, like, okay, it's a fine twist. Yeah, I can appreciate that we were given an option that was immediately written off, and then it turns out that was the actual solution the entire time. But
What a twist!
the logic of the time stuff, just the way it interacted with Twilight's character didn't line up for me, so I didn't pay much attention to it through the fic because I didn't really care. I was more just waiting to see how the relationship would develop. But looking back on it, I needed the twist to have more time to get out of the spotlight for me to appreciate the ending a little bit better. And I especially needed them to address how things are still severely fucked up, and it's worth acknowledging that they're very, very fucked up, and no amount of Rainbow Dash getting used to what she's been put through or having those brief flashes of memories that it's never stated for sure if she will ever be able to get back, but we can expect that she probably won't. No amount of that is going to make up for not giving her the time to actually sit with how she feels and where she wants to go from there, with the revelation that this is her now. There is no time travel, no chance of going back.
Do we have anything else to add about the ending? Because we legit actually are starting to go toward a 4-hour fanfic review. I'll assume from the deafening silence.
We can move to the
I'm
next
sorry,
point.
she likes
Next point, please.
Silence is
Thank you.
acquiescence
she
for
likes
me.
positive affirmation. I'm sorry. Yes, continue. I'm so sorry. I knew that and then I forgot.
It's fine.
I'm supposed to explicitly say, no, I have nothing further to add at this time. Drill Sergeant, sir.
Really? Right, okay. So our last point, before we go on to final thoughts, is one that Illya suggested, which is foreshadowing and aftershadowing. Illya, do you want to explain what you mean by that?
Certainly, but first, I'm very disappointed that the entire group has not been told to fuck off today. That is a
I'm clearly saving it for the end.
Well, you might say that. You might say it after this. You took
Okay, fuck off, Illya.
You took my perfectly good made-up word "aftershadowing" and made it "aftershadowing." That just tore me up inside.
And for those who are listening to this, I added a hyphen.
Okay. Well, anyway, I was going to say about the ending first, just a little bit. There are all sorts of instances in life where people lose everything. They lose all of their possessions, or they lose all of their friends, or they lose control of most of their body. And they reinvent themselves and they move on with their lives, and it happens. It's a very important theme to get used to. So I don't see any problem at all with her having to just give up those 15 years and start over with her family. And now let me tell you how it should have happened. First of all, in the aftershadowing, I want to take the aftershadowing first. I was convinced pretty early on that it wasn't time travel, because if it had been time travel, then they would have almost been forced to go back and review incidents in the past and change perspectives from present day to past day to help explain some of the time travel issues. They never went back to me, and I was saying, okay, this is not going to be time travel. The second thing is they did foreshadow it a little bit by talking about it when they first got together with Twilight, and then they never talked about it again. They just kept pushing the time travel, pushing the closed loop, open loop. That's obviously misdirection. So I was pretty sure it was going to be some form of amnesia. As far as the foreshadowing goes, excuse me, I need a sip of coffee. Just a second.
Coffee solves everything.
Bookplayer did some wonderful foreshadowing for something that never happened and would have made the story so wonderful at the end. Do you recall? Excuse me.
Don't leave us hanging on that. You got to tell us.
There was this point toward the end when Leaf began to develop a cold. And then it was described as like the horrible cold, it was just terrible. And I was almost quite convinced that what was going to happen was it was going to become a terrible sickness from which Leaf almost died. And then Rainbow would realize how much Leaf meant to him. And in so doing, realize how much he was invested into this new family. And then this would have paved the road for him to become part of the new existence rather than the old one. It needed, like Suni said, about another 10,000 words to go through that with Leaf. And then it would have just been a beautiful ending where Rainbow realizes her new life has meaning and merit, and it's where she wants to be. In my mind, that would have worked, even with the ending we had.
Tell me, Spirit. Tell me if Tiny Tim will live.
Tell me if Tiny Leaf will live.
Yes, it reminds me of like that movie, the Nick Cage movie, Family Man, the idea that he gets it's similar, right? Like he gets transported into this alternate life where, he has a family, and then he's skeptical and tries to get out of this life for the whole movie until at the end, when he's finally taken away from the life, he desperately wants to recreate it. And it's almost tragic in that he's lost all those things that, he loves. It almost feels like it's sort of a blueprint for this particular fiction. And I agree, Illya. I think that extra time because they sort of hint that Rainbow is not so sure she wants to go, but it's not clear, like, no, please don't take me away from this life, right? Like that transition hasn't happened just yet. It's just starting. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, that was the main theme of the story, was accepting the new life to me. I think that this plot point where it became not time travel, but some form of amnesia, should have come first. You foreshadow Leaf getting sick. You come through and say, well, it's amnesia. And so that's not the climax, because it was a piss poor climax. Then you have a real climax where Leaf almost dies. Then you go into the after epilogue and all that. I think it would have worked so much better. It needed that.
I'm trying to process how I feel about that.
I agree. I like this.
I disagree.
Go on then, Sunny. Why do you disagree?
I think it would have emotionally manipulative to Rainbow Dash, because of course a big dramatic tragedy is going to force you to care about this life, but tragedy isn't your entire life. Like, what happens if Leaf recovers and then she realizes, I only cared about him because he was a kid who was dying. I don't actually have this meaningful connection where I can live day to day with this kid that I still barely know. I just think it would have been...
I mean, kind of like the actual ending. Well, clearly I only cared about Applejack and his life because the alternative was being dead.
Yeah, and we know I got beef with that, but as much as it is a good idea, and I love me some drama, I think that would have read as a bit emotionally manipulative in that it was trying to force Rainbow Dash to confront another tragedy on top of the one she already isn't confronting. And this is going to be another personal anecdote real quick, but just because it's relevant. I have been through situations where like my entire identity has been completely rewritten, where awful things have happened that completely put into perspective who I was, and I just had to chug along and redevelop my identity around those events. And I was very much the kind of person who was like, okay, this is life now, let's keep going. That's not healthy. Like, you need to take time to process and understand what has happened and to allow it to be a weighty, awful event, and not just keep trying to force yourself to see the good and the awesome and let good things be awesome. I get that that's the point, but it does read a little bit toxic positive to me, because yes, bad things happen, and yes, you just have to get through them. But I really, really wanted this fic to give Rainbow the time to come to terms with the fact that her entire life just very suddenly changed. She lost 15 years, and she knows she's never getting that back. I mean, she might, maybe, but the chance has been pushed as being very slim. She's getting flashes at best. So that's a big thing to come to terms with. And I really wish she'd been given more time.
The thing with Leaf was not that would turn everything around, but that would begin a process where Rainbow could grieve the loss. You wouldn't do it in a page. You do it in 10,000 words, where this is the Leaf almost dying is the impetus for her to come to terms with her grief, and that needed to be done. But you don't magically not have the grief. You don't magically not have the new life that you're just stuck with. It's there. No, you don't magically just, cheer up, I'm okay. You do need to go through a process, but they could have done that, and I think they should have.
So you think it was more a transitional thing than an end point?
Oh, yeah.
Something to entrench her in the life more than emotionally manipulate her.
Yeah, to get her to thinking about what she's lost and thinking about what she's gained, and explore that. But you have to have that. I'm just looking for a really it's not near the climax, a problem towards the end that you've got to get around. And just this in a story that seems like a thing.
Sunny?
I just assumed you might have something to say to that before we finish.
Yeah, I think the story had enough problems. I in fact think it had too many problems that it didn't address. And I don't think you need to add another tragedy to it. It would have been interesting, but adding that element would have taken more time to resolve, and I think it already struggled with knowing how much time it needed to resolve things. I really just would have wanted Rainbow to come to terms with things on her own in smaller, more grounded ways. It would have read like a bit of a lot to me if we had stacked a near death of a child on top of Rainbow's entire being dying already. Maybe they could have like held a funeral for old Rainbow Dash or something. Like there could have been another significant moment given to the existing problem of what Rainbow is going through to give some more importance to that issue and re-highlight something that's already been established. But I don't think introducing a new issue would have been my personal preference for the ending of the story. I think it needed to do more with the issue it had.
Okay. Does anybody have anything to add before we go on to final thoughts?
No.
You're all doing it again.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry,
you.
no.
I have no further thoughts at this time, Drill Sergeant. Sorry.
I've talked enough.
Thank you.
The defense rests.
All right. So we're on to final thoughts then before we say goodbye. Clever, what are your final thoughts on the fic for our listeners?
Yeah, I loved it. There's a paperback copy out there if you go looking for it. I think it's worth a read. I was a very quick read. I loved it. I'm already talking about wanting to adapt it into a radio play because I love the format and it's what I'm doing currently. I think it's definitely worth the read. If you don't or do ship, it's just very well written and a very worthy addition to. And whether you agree with you like the ending or not, even having the ability to talk about it and discuss it, I think is a fantastic way to interact with other people. So read it and talk about it, and then listen to this podcast again, and then read it again.
Illya?
I thought it was so well written that it held me spellbound, even though I didn't give a shit about AppleDash. The relationship didn't mean that much to me, and the children, but it was just so well written. And I think the ending had problems. And that's where I'll sit.
It's high praise that somebody who doesn't give a shit about the pairing still enjoyed the story. And can we just say, just because we have been quite negative, we all like Bookplayer's writing and Bookplayer as an author, even if we've kind of shat on one of her magnum opuses.
He's incredible. He, it, whatever. He's an incredible author, really.
Niall?
I loved it. I have it in hardback. It's not just in softback. You can also order it in hardback. But I purchased this the day after I finished reading it for the first time, and I love it. And like I said, I'm not AppleDash is not usually my cup of tea. I don't necessarily always like the setup of the ship, but I really enjoyed this, and I agree with everybody who's brought up the point. I do think that there are some areas that it definitely needed to breathe more, but that doesn't take away from what's there for me, and I absolutely enjoyed this. It is in my top 3 now. I would recommend anybody to read this, whether you like it or you don't. Just the fact that it makes you feel something that's good, because there's so many things I read nowadays where I'm like, I don't give a crap about any of this. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
I'm curious now, what are your other top 2?
So the one that you linked back to me, I think it's the Rarity and Sweetie Belle one.
Oh,
yeah,
yes,
that
I know which
one.
one you mean. The post-apocalyptic one.
I think it's Light of the Stars or something like that. And then the Fallout Equestria, the original one. I really enjoy it because I'm a huge fan Fallout Equestria, and all the ways that K-Cat did that were just, it's enjoyable for me. I've listened to that or read that fic at least 24 times, and I own 4 physical copies. 3 of them are for gifts for future friends, because it's one of those things that I would like to give to somebody if I find a kindred spirit who enjoys it. So, yeah.
Interesting. Neighrator, final thoughts?
Pretty good. 7 out of 10. Go read it.
Succinct yet adorable. Sunny?
This fic would have never lived up to the hype that y'all gave it. So I went in with a bit of a bias, expecting it to be really fantastic, and unfortunately, I just disagreed with the author's choices too much to really get that level of enjoyment out of it. I think everything that was done was intentional. I think they're a really solid writer. I don't think there was any point where I felt that they were accidentally doing something, besides maybe some possible reads of characterization and karma that I don't think they expected to be interpreted like Rainbow kind of. How do I say the thing I want to say without saying it outright and getting you demonetized? Rainbow being
Say it, and I can always chop it out or bleep you.
rapey.
I'm yeah, we go.
Rapey. She was being very physically aggressive in a roundabout way, and I wasn't about that, but I don't think the author considered it that. I think that kind of thing is just very normalized to people. Obviously Rainbow was intended to be a jerk, but I don't think the author understood how much of a jerk she was being. So there were bits like that where it was just, maybe they just didn't think about possible interpretations as much. But overall, obviously the author is a really, really good author. I would definitely read their other stuff. This one just was not for me because I didn't like the direction it went in.
For me, your mileage may vary on this. I enjoyed it right up until the point the mystery was revealed, and then I stopped enjoying it. I would recommend, yes, Milo, I know you want to go out. We hear the pitiful mewling in the background.
Yep.
Like, I'm awake! I want to go out!
Lisa.
I think that if you didn't like this one, even if you did like this one, Homesteading did it better. Obviously, it's a different ship, but Homesteading did it better. Yes, Milo agrees. And with that, we will say... Oh, no, we wouldn't say goodbye. We actually go spin the wheel. And there's only 4 people here who are eligible, because Skywriter unfortunately left, and you need to be here to say the fic that you've chosen. I really hope everybody's got a fic ready to go.
Oh, I didn't know that was a thing.
Just pick a fic that you've read recently that you would like us to talk about. That is one of the things of just, at the end of a story, we spin the wheel, and the next person gets chosen. Yes, Milo, I know. You better... No! Stop script! No! Stop it! No!
The cats are the real meowderators.
Jesus.
He starts his scratching up the
Time to wrap
sofa.
up.
Yeah, he is. He's like, pay attention to me, bitch, otherwise I'm gonna shred your sofa.
He's getting impertinent.
All the cat puns. Right, so I'm gonna spin the wheel, and whoever it lands on, they pick the fic that we're looking at next time, and we will organise the recording date based on their availability. 3, 2, 1, here we go. And it's landed on Nile of the Nine. So Nile.
Motion of the Stars by Carabas. That was the one I was telling you about.
Okie dokie, so we're looking at a post-apocalyptic Rarity Sweetie Belle bonding story. Not a romance, unlike a lot of the ones we've been doing recently. So, I didn't realise how that was coming across when I first said it. I just meant we've been looking at a lot of romance fics. I did not mean to imply fucking incest. Oh, God.
Whoa.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, great, that's a note to land on.
Okay, bye!
Okay, we're gonna say goodbye now, everyone, because clearly talking for over 4 hours has baked my brain. We'll say goodbye. So it's goodbye from Clever Hoops.
Goodbye, and thank you for having me.
Goodbye from Illya.
Have a fine rest of the day, however much that is for you.
Goodbye from Niall.
Goodbye. Hope this was entertaining, and hope you have a wonderful day.
Goodbye from Neighrator Pony.
I'm going to sleep.
And goodbye from Sunny.
I'm already asleep.
And it's goodbye from me, and from a very grumpy Milo. Thank you for coming, everybody. Bye.
G'day, g'day, g'day.
Bye.
Bye.
Deuces.